They're coming! They're coming! Papa, I've seen the first star! May I open the present? Steady on! First, we've been working on a special little Polish surprise with Tina and Alice. 3, 4. Przybierzeli do Betlejem pasterze, grając koncertet w słoneczku na liże. Fała na wysokości, sing along stars, sing, a pokój na ziemi.
Wow, what a wonderful little Polish surprise that was.
Yes, indeed. Ryan, you always do the cold openings. I thought this time I should do it.
Yeah, there's only been, 2 or 3 times where you've done it because I wasn't here in these 10 years.
Yeah, 3 times, and this was within, the first 20 episodes.
That's crazy. So, everyone, we are here today. This is Spit and Polish with your 2 hosts, Ryan and Bartek here, and we are presenting a very special episode of the podcast because it is our 10-year anniversary. 10 years ago today, when this episode comes out, we released our first episode of the pod, which was Unappreciated Masterpieces, Big Fat Liar.
That was the first episode.
What a way to start.
Mm-hmm.
What a way to kick it all off. 10 years. What a crazy thing just to think about. But how are you, Bartek? How are you doing?
Doing well. I'm kind of nervous.
Mm?
You know, we do episodes every week, and sometimes, we come in with different levels of confidence, like, oh, we're going to nail this episode. Sometimes like, oh, man, I don't know how this episode's going to go. But you can kind of forgive whether it's like, an okay episode. Maybe it's like, oh, bad one, but the next one will be fine. Or, oh, that was a great one. We only get to do a 10th anniversary once. So it's like, oh, I don't want it to be, just okay or bad. I kind of want this one to be, good celebration.
It's going to be a good time, I think, because we've had an amazing 10-year experience. We've gone through so much, but I understand how you're feeling. I'm just feeling very sentimental. I never thought about how long this podcast would go for. When we first started this, we just finished university. Bartek and I barely knew each other, really, in the grand scheme of things. We only got to know, only got classes, really, and got to know each other properly in the later half of our university degree. And it was a way of, getting to know each other, this podcast. You had experience in podcasting before.
Yes, I remember the little jokes in that very first episode where I was like, yeah, look, guys, this is easy. This is how you do it.
This is how you do it. And I had experiences with public radio in the past. And so it's like, let's bring our 2 forces together. And we started off doing audio commentaries, and now look, here we are, all of these years later, a decade later, and we've had so many things go on in the interim of time. And it's just, I am astonished that we're here, still here doing this podcast. There's so much has gone on, and yet we've been pretty consistent over the years when it comes to putting out episodes, which I'm very proud of.
Yeah, that's the key.
We have our little breaks here and there, but for the most part, we've been at it, once a week for a good chunk of the time, and I'm just like, that is, I never thought too far ahead with our pod. I just thought we're going to just keep talking about movies until one day it stops, and I'm still in that mentality today. I'm just like, I don't know, it's stop one day.
Same here. Yeah, it's always crazy to think about, just like when we see the episode count. It's like we've done over 400 episodes. Like, not all of them have been, necessarily a straightforward review. Like, we did like a Q&A at one point, I think an announcement here and there. Mystery box is a bit more free form, but still, that's at least 400 media products that we've watched and, talked about in some way, shape, or form.
And we have things to talk about here. But before we dive into all of that, do you think when it comes to our show, Spit and Polish, that you've learned more about spitting and or how to be Polish? You
know what? I don't think we've ever really had a big discussion about spitting.
We're just spitting young gentlemen.
It's always just been saying that we are spitting young gentlemen, using spitting as an adjective, and also just like, oh, the verb, like we happen.
I think we've literally spit on the mic and each other at some point.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
and
definitely.
Ourselves.
In the first, up until like, what was it? From Paris with Love, when we started doing like separate microphones. We would be huddled up together, kind of, in a little line. We'd have, like, little spittle particles.
Oh, yeah.
We've obviously done the joke of, like, poop, poop, after we say it, but they're never really, philosophizing about spitting.
The name of the podcast, obviously, is a little play on words here, because Bartek and I both happen to have Polish heritage and families, but we have drastically different relationships to Polish culture. Bartek can speak the language, can read it too.
And sing it, apparently.
And sing it. I don't have that, but I can say, to answer part of that question of what I've learned about Polish stuff over the years is been very, very grand, because it's always often about movies and media stuff, but then once in a while, because you'll come in with a Polish title, or you'll just mention like Polish politics or a Polish phrase, I've learned so much about like little weird Polish things, like, or you just talking about when you've gone to Poland and just saying like, oh, they love carbonated water over there, they're crazy for it. I didn't know that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known it if I didn't do this podcast. Or
sometimes when you prompt me with a question, I end up looking up something and we learn it. Like, one of the things that I was looking up earlier today when I was doing my notes was it brought me to our episode on the Love Witch. And in that episode at the beginning, when we were starting things off, you were asking about like Poland and Halloween. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I'll look it up.
Yeah, you've been dismissive of it in the past. So I was like, what's the deal? They must do something.
Yeah, it's just because I'd never heard of anything. And then I learned like, oh, apparently and I was reading things like they go to graveyards and light them on fire. It's like, what does that mean? And, while you were, introducing the episode or the podcast, I was like Googling and I'm like, oh, look at these photos. These are actually gorgeous.
And the biggest one that's been the greatest takeaway of the Polish culture is a lektor. That's, to me, the greatest thing ever, in which a lektor is a monotoned man who narrates over a film. Instead of doing dubbing for foreign films, they lower the volume slightly, and then they have usually a man in a very dry, monotone way just describing the film. Just going through the film. And I think that's so... At first, I found it astonishing. I was like, that's crazy. That makes no sense. I had the typical reaction of when I now tell people about lectors. But now that I've seen what a lector is, and we've talked about it so much, and you often describe it as like, what's the parallel, or like, what's the way you often...
I compare it to on the news when... an English language news station will talk about like, oh, this foreign person gave this speech, and it cuts to the speech and it's the person giving a speech in their native language. And you hear them speaking in their native language, but then they quiet down and then like a translator talks over them, like live translating. And
when you've described it like that, it actually makes sense as a way of dubbing films. Like, different cultures do things differently when it comes to art, and that makes sense to me. And I think that's been my biggest like wow thing of learning more about Polish stuff. There's obviously funny words and funny statements, yes, or big fat liar in Polish. I always bastardize and call ubi grubi kwanza because it sounds like that, but it's actually, do you remember?
Yes, duże grube kłamców.
Yeah, ubi gruby kwanza.
Yeah. But then the other day you threw denia at me. I'm like, what?
that's pumpkin. Now I'm the master.
Yes, Ryan's memorized the word pumpkin in Polish, and now he's going to throw it at me every now and then.
A real pumpkin, I'll throw at him as well, or a real denia.
Yeah.
Boom.
With the lector thing, it was only the last time we brought it up that I remembered the I think I called it like the semi-lector, or like the selectoring.
Oh, wow.
Where it was, I brought up Looney Tunes as the example, and I linked you an episode of Looney Tunes, in our own time, where, English text will appear in these cartoons and stuff, and that won't be, like, physically translated.
Yeah.
So when it shows up in a Polish dub,
What do they do?
They would have just the lector read it, translate it. So, it's like the example that I linked you was like a Daffy Duck episode where Tasmanian Devil escapes the zoo and Daffy Duck has to deal with him. And it's like, establishing shot of the zoo. The name of the zoo is here, and it'll be like something zoo, because that's the name of the zoo.
Nice. We, as stated, we started off with a perfect film for the podcast. The podcast was inspired and formed because of the film Big Fat Liar. I watched it and I was like, man, I've never really watched this movie in full. God, and no one talks about this movie. This movie's great. This is like a staple of my childhood, and I'm sure it is for many people. And a part of that was also the keen obsession and fascination of Paul Giamatti for me. I was like, Paul Giamatti in Big Fat Liar was just such a joy as a kid. Like, there was like, I think everyone has their adult actor who played the villainous force in a children's movie that you just love. The adult bad guy. I think everyone has their one or two that they go like, oh, I loved them when I was growing up. Whether it is obviously Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern in Home Alone, or Paul Giamatti in Big Fat Liar. We can go on. And when we started this pod, we talked about Paul Giamatti. It's like, oh, well, Paul Giamatti's like this fascinating figure as an actor because, like, I took him as like he's a very dramatic, accomplished Academy Award nominee type actor, like an artsy actor. He did Sideways. And so Big Fat Liar and Thunderpants were like these anomalies in his career. It's like, why is he doing these like silly films? Why is he doing that? But over the course of our pod, we've had him pop up from time to time. He's become how would you describe him for us, Bartek? What has he become for us? He's almost like the god of the pod, almost. He's like the sacred cow.
Yeah, a sacred cow's a bit more close there. Like, I think of other, like, web series that I've been a fan of for a long time, and they'll be like, their recurring name. Like, in recent years, I've gotten into Red Letter Media. And in their best of the worst stuff, they bring up what was that guy's name? Cameron Mitchell?
Cameron Mitchell, yeah.
Like, Cameron Mitchell's like this kind of god for them on their best of the worst show. And I guess Paul Giamatti's our equivalent of like, the actor that when he pops up, it's like, oh, this is an event. We have high expectations.
And for you, what has been the relationship with Paul Giamatti? Like, what was your thoughts about this actor before we started the pod, and how has that changed for you over the decade?
It's honestly, I've talked about it a couple of times, but it's honestly kind of just the reverse of you, where I wasn't really aware of him all that much before. Like, there was maybe two things I'd seen him in, and one of them was The Truman Show, where he's, a bit player.
Mm-hmm. A very minor supporting character.
Yeah, like, I didn't even remember that he was in it until, way later, probably close to when we did it on the podcast many years in. So the first impression, to my conscious past is watching Big Fat Liar 10 years ago.
And being astonished at what an amazing performance he gave.
Yeah, just this very funny adult guy in this, kind of Dan Schneider Nickelodeon era comedy. He brings this, live action cartoon energy, and that's a lot of fun. And then again, we see him the following week in Thunderpants, where a little bit more subdued. Plays a secret agent guy, iconic thumb. Never forget the iconic thumb. We have a thing later on about, iconic standout moments. I guess the thumb's big one.
Oh yeah. Paul Giamatti's iconic looking thumb. Yes.
Yeah, and he has a bit more of a back and forth with characters in that one. But yeah, the impression at the start of the podcast has basically been, he's a comedy actor, I guess, and as you would tell me going forward, like, oh, but he's been in a bunch of like dramatic things, and we saw a little bit of a shift in that. Going forward, we eventually get to Shoot 'Em Up, where he's like, in a very violent film.
But he's a cartoon.
He's still very funny in that one.
That's a Looney Tunes movie, but done as if it was a Jason Statham action film.
Yeah. And I haven't seen a lot of like the actually big famous roles of his. Like, I haven't seen Sideways.
Cinderella Man.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. Like, the closest I can think of probably is maybe the last two things we did, and even though it was also a comedy, the Holdovers, where there was a bit of like a more sentimental angle there.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I've figured Paul Giamatti lives, is in what he does in the Holdovers, where he has a dramatic side, but it also lives in harmony with the comedic bent to it, because the last two films we've done with Paul Giamatti have had a little bit of that too, especially Storytelling is a funny film, but a fucked up film. And Paul Giamatti in that is funny, but he's also deeply upsetting because he's just such a neurotic loser. And what was the one we did before?
The Nanny Diaries.
The Nanny Diaries, where, yeah, he's serious in that. The movie's lighthearted, but he's the darkness. But what about Lady in the Water?
Mm-hmm.
That's a dramatic for him. That's a dramatic film for him. So we've had you're giving me a squint-eyed look about that one.
No,
yeah.
I knew that it'll come up.
Yeah,
I wrote it down for something else.
Yeah.
I mean, that one is one where it is a dramatic one, but also it's a bad film, so we can't help but really see a comedic angle to it.
He's also giving in all caps performance in that one. He has a stutter. And he's going very, very much into the I'm an actor, I've got my gimmick.
My character's name is Heap.
What was his first name?
It was like Herbert Heap?
No, it was not Herbert Heap. But his last name was Heap, which is very good. Yeah, Paul Giamatti has definitely changed in my eyes. He was the guy he played John Adams in the John Adams HBO miniseries, which was considered to be one of the greatest historical dramas. You know,
the second president of America.
Yeah. And he was excellent in that. And he was Cinderella Man, Academy Award nominated, paired up with Russell Crowe. Like, what a great duo they make. And he's lovely in that movie. Sideways is just Paul Giamatti drinking wine, and it's just amazing. But doing this podcast, it's really shaken me, because it's like, is he actually just a goofball who has the thin veneer of a prestigious, serious, artsy actor, but he gets away with it because he gets away with it. He gets away with it. Like he does goofy shit. He's in Big Mama's house. He's even in his more dramatic movies, he's doing like crazy nonsense things that I don't think a lot of other actors in the position he has been able to find himself in could get away with. But Paul Giamatti just has this affable presence where, like, he can be in the Holdovers and give you the dramatic, serious stuff in these little quiet moments. But then, as I said when we walked out of that movie, I love it when Paul Giamatti gets to yell. And there's just something about him that is this, for me, become almost elusive over the years, because I keep having to shift my expectations and perceptions of him. But then what keeps recurring is he is an actor that I think is just, like us, just wanting to have a fun time in any production he's in.
That's what I wanted to bring up. I remember in the first couple of years, we would always refer to this one newspaper interview thing that he did, where they were asking him about, like, oh, you were in these films. What was that like? And he was talking about how, like, Thunderpants was so much fun. Big Mama's house, yeah, that kind of thing. And
he even talked about Thunderpants on the press tour for Holdovers.
Oh, yeah, he was recommending it to the lady that won the Oscar.
Yeah.
What was her name? Divine?
Joy Randolph, yeah, because the interview asked him, does he still believe that to be his best film? Because he said it was his best film.
Yeah, and she didn't know what it was, and he was like, no, you got to see it. Yeah, but I just remember in that interview, like, he was so, happy and chill about the fact that, I did these kids' films, and they were really entertaining, and I think they're very lovely stories. So I think he's just an actor or a person that just appreciates the work that he's been given and, has found joy in it.
Very self-aware. I think he's very self-aware of where he is and what he's capable of doing. Still challenging, but still very much knowing. And what you said there about his interview, it was kind of almost the heart of when we started the pod with Unappreciated Masterpieces. Unappreciated Masterpieces was when we were doing commentary tracks for movies that, we felt didn't get enough attention, or we felt don't get talked about highly. in review spheres, like, where's a podcast episode on this film or that film? And, so many times over, we came back to children's movies, ones that we'd seen or ones that we knew of, because children's films are, like, very important, I feel. And Unappreciated Masterpieces was just us getting to, as adults, look back and be like, okay, how do children's films, as well as so many others, we covered a large array on there, but we did come back to children's films a lot. And it's because of, like, what Paul Giamatti even says. It's like there's a fun there. There's a permission to, like, let loose. But where does that permission to let loose start to go beyond into laziness? And we had that discussion a lot during Unappreciated Masterpieces of just, like, why is this film not just a cheap, cynical cash grab or just spew it out for, mindless children's entertainment? But with Unappreciated Masterpieces in general, it's just like, here are a bunch of films that, maybe have poor reviews or middling reviews, but, like, you could see with each one of them, like with any film, but especially films of those calibers, often we would do, like, big studio movies. There was still, like, a lot of effort put in, like, and we have fellow podcasting friends and so on, and it's like, how often do we get to see people go in depth and talk about a forgotten Sylvester Stallone comedy, or this film with Cameron Diaz in it at the height of her career, but no one talks about this one, and it's just like, I love doing Unappreciated Masterpieces to get in touch with those type of films, because I can't speak for you, but for me, these type of films were the ones that I had in my life a lot more, because when I was growing up as a kid, you just watched what was on TV. You just watched whatever you owned on DVD. You just watched whatever movies you were taken to by your mum or dad or both. But nowadays, we get to choose whatever we watch. We're adults as well, so we also get to choose what we watch. But in the age of streaming and buying and piracy and all of that, you are now so keenly aware of, like, how much your time is worth. And so it's like, are you going to sit down and watch Big Fat Liar? Probably not. But boy, did I watch that film multiple times growing up, and I think there's something. And
finally, when we did on the podcast, you saw the whole beginning.
I saw the whole film. Yeah, I saw the whole film because, again, it was on TV. I always missed the bit of it at the beginning, so now I got to know he skateboarded.
Yep. So you mentioned before there, like, speaking for yourself, not speaking for me, because there was the big thing of, like, there were so many films, but there still are so many films that I just have not seen. And you've made that, you've made that point multiple times over the years. I was obviously scrolling through a couple of episodes just for, things to bring here. And when I was looking through the Thunderpants episode, which is literally the second thing we ever recorded, there was a funny, you brought it up right then and there already, and but it almost sounded like a quote that we'd been doing it for a while. And I wrote it down. So you said, and I wrote the exact syntax just to make myself feel better, you stuttering. You said, see, now, for some reason, it's each week, Bartek, this is like, I keep coming up with these movies so far, with Big Fat Liar and now Thunderpants, and neither of one have you seen. What were you doing as a child? And that was Ryan, 2015, Thunderpants episode, about 2 minutes in.
Nothing. What were you doing as a kid?
Exactly.
We don't know. Bartek doesn't know, nor do I. Can your mum answer? Can she write in?
Toy Story Polish dub. I think I had Lion King Polish dub as well.
But Unappreciated Masterpieces, how do you feel about that show, that format? Because we've gone through so many different iterations on the pod now.
Yeah.
But that's the one that kicked it all off, and we got to do so many things. We had so many guests, and we just really got to discover a lot of films through that as well, because there were so many just blind picks that neither of us had seen before, but we just had a feeling that, this is an unappreciated masterpiece.
Yeah, that was a really, really fun show to do. It was it was the first show that we did. And in a way, it was also the most experimental one, because we had, an agenda going in. These are the greatest films that have ever been made, and they have not been appreciated enough. So a lot of it wasn't so much, us writing our reviews and then coming in and having an in-depth discussion. There was like a very, reactionary element where we would be watching it muted together with subtitles, and we were making these off-the-cuff remarks, building on this idea.
We didn't know what the other person was going to react with either,
not necessarily.
and especially the guests as well. While, say, with Pictures Powwow, it's like, well, I feel like I know perhaps Bartek's going to like this film or hate this film, or he'll mention this thing, and you same with me. And that's not always true, but you kind of forgot. But with Unappreciated Masterpieces, it was really a wild card situation.
I tell a lot of people, when I tell them about why we do the podcast, one thing that I always bring up is that, I come from a drama background, so the performance and, entertainment is something that I kind of want to do. And because I don't do it, all that much post-university, like I kind of bring a lot of that energy to the podcast. And early on when we were doing Unappreciated Masterpieces and we were, trying to be funny a lot of the time.
I would say it's when we were our funniest was Unappreciated Masterpieces.
Unappreciated Masterpieces, and to an extent the Mystery Box are the comedy shows that we did. Televisual Event and Pictures Powwow, a bit more straightforward review shows.
Analytical.
So, us coming out of uni still having that energy, and we have all this very frequent cycle of guests that we bring in. It very much felt, appropriate to our early years, where we're still learning how to get things done, and even if it doesn't work, it's like improv, like you win some, you lose some kind of thing. And yeah, we did 161 episodes of that one. We lost one of them, unfortunately, so we kind of just say we did 160, but still, that's quite a lot. I haven't done the maths, but it's at least like a third of our library at this point. It's obviously getting smaller, but as we keep going. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I honestly wouldn't mind doing another couple someday just to see if we still got it. Because another thing, as we've grown, is our tastes and habits kind of changed too. Like I remember early on, I would very frequently say, like, the eggs are on my face as like a euphemism for I got embarrassed. And it's a phrase that I liked saying, and I still like that phrase, but I just stopped using it.
Now I use it.
Yeah, you do. There were a couple of clips that I listened to. I'm like, oh, Ryan's using it. So, oh, I used it there. And it's something like, oh, I should say that more often, but it just doesn't come to me because I guess, you just kind of, your tastes a lot misalign or change rather.
Yeah, you grow up and your points of reference change. I remember, Unappreciated Masterpieces was us getting to know each other. What movies, the classic, what were you doing as a kid? Where were you? But we were discovering so much about ourselves as well, like what things in a movie tickle our fancy, or what things do we enjoy outside of these movies, and how do we compare them? Back in the day, I always remember it had got to a point where I would like roll my eyes. It's like GTA would come up, Saved by the Bell would come up, you'd have like a few like Final Fantasy would come up, like you have like several of these events pop up, and then I would do the same as well. Like I remember, especially during the Mystery Box, and it wasn't my fault, the Mystery Box just brought this. Babylon 5 became the big talking point where it's like, I flexed my B5 card because I'm a big fan of that show, and it just kept coming up. And
it was relevant there, yeah.
And it was, I had this hilarious moment where recently we were talking about off mic, but a bit on, about the film Old Boy. Mm-hmm. And I was saying that the lead actor in Old Boy was in the film Lucy that we covered, and you forgot that. And then I re-listened to a bit of our Lucy discussion just to re-listen to that bit, and no joke, the bit after that, or a bit around there, I start talking about how the plot of this movie is like an episode of Babylon 5. And I'm like, what the fuck, Ryan? And you know what's sad? When I was listening to it before I got there, I was actually thinking the exact same fucking episode that I then went on to mention. It was just a hilarious, like, oh yeah, Lucy, it really reminds me of Mind War from Babylon. And then I said that. I'm like, oh my God.
I think that's happened to me a couple of times where I'm listening to something and I have this thought. I'm like, oh, I'd probably say this in response. And then I say that in the episode.
It was a lot of laughs, but I think too, with Unappreciated Masterpieces, it also brought us the most, like, arguments.
Oh, yeah. I was going to bring that up next.
Well, the mystery box also brought up a lot of arguments, but like I think arguments came about, and fun arguments that we still think of to this day and even still bristle against to this day. But you know, whether it's okay to drop a cat is an iconic one for me, or just you know, or like lessons learned, like me learning about how to say Macaulay Culkin's name, or you learning about the Irish, and how don't say that they're part of the UK. Not all Irish people are like that.
But they are part of the UK.
No, it's Northern Ireland is part of the UK.
That's another thing. We love running jokes.
We love running jokes. Anything else you want to say about Unappreciated Masterpieces?
Yeah, the argument thing. That definitely back in the, like I said, those first two shows are kind of like the comedy shows that we did. Those are the ones where the arguments came out a lot. And the fact that we had guests on usually added to it. I remember one of the episodes that I was listening to for a thing that I'm going to talk about later was The Man. And do you remember much about our episode on The Man?
Not off the top. I remember the film very much. Who was our guest?
Exactly. I forgot that Mark was in that episode.
Our good friend Mark.
Our good friend Mark was in that. That's the last thing he appeared on in this podcast, I'm pretty sure. Our episode on The Man.
For Unappreciated Masterpieces?
Yeah. For overall.
Oh, okay.
I don't think we've had him on since we did The Man. That was
not even Mystery Box. Wow.
That was the 2 times he appeared on Mr. Rocks was before The Man.
Oh, wow. Crazy.
Yeah. So the last thing was The Man, which was one of our last, like, 10-ish episodes.
Wow. For some reason, I had in my head the last time we had him was Jennifer's Body.
Yeah, that was the second last time.
Okay, there you go. So, The Man, what do we argue about there?
Oh, dude, we had it was insane. I did not remember a single thing about what we talked about in this episode, and I'll get into it later on as well, but it was not just like myself and you having argument, but like Mark and I were like ganging up on you about things. Like we had like all the classics of like, you know, semantics of words. We misunderstood a thing and then you retorted about how like you get my point. And then you brought up at one point the thing of like, you know, how do you survive in Australia? And clearly I'd heard that one too many times in our time together, and I like snapped at you like, I've done this for 26 years. It was crazy. I did not remember a single thing about this.
What?
And you know what else was brought up?
What?
Mark started talking about the cat dropping thing. So clearly earlier in the episode, the argument came up and he was giving his take on it. And you were accusing him of like pretending to agree with me or something. It was crazy.
And he's a liar. He drops his cats.
Yeah,
he does that all the time.
You said that in the episode and he retorted like, yes, and I feel bad about it.
No, he doesn't. You've met him now. You've met him with his cats. He doesn't feel bad about it. He's lying.
Hey, man, Mark and the Man doesn't lie.
So I will say that with the mystery box, that was a big step for us because, I pitched like, hey, why don't we do a monthly show?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the premise. We gather a bunch of mysterious items, you know, films or whatever we find, op shops or things that just come our way.
They were all DVDs.
Yes, all DVDs. Yeah. As long as we don't have any awareness of what this thing is, let's just put it in a box, choose it at random. At the start, we chose which ones, but then we kind of went at random. And then let's just discuss it. We watch it together, then come in and discuss it. And it was a big step because not only was it a new show for us, but, you know, I think it was the educational thing for me because I had to learn how to do podcast editing more because I wanted to edit in clips. I wanted to rearrange stuff. I wanted to play around. See, I find the mystery box to be the experimental phase of our show. And I think a lot of my favorite like funny moments of our podcast come from me doing edits for the mystery box. I always think of, you know, the films that we did for the mystery box or the products that we did for the mystery box would make me so angry. I think it's like the angry show, but I then think about like when edited together, like how funny some of those things would come across, which is like out of context clips just being dropped in, or just like re-emphasizing a point being made, or sometimes like just being very vindictive in the edit of just like, our friend Will would say, oh no, I'm pretty sure it was that they said tea. And I'm like, no, it was coffee. And then I would just play the coffee clip from the thing over every time he said tea and things like that.
Lentils, Loetti.
Things like that. And I found that, personally, I found that very helpful because I have another podcast podcast with my wife, and there's a lot of editing involved in that. And if I didn't do the mystery box, that podcast would be drastically different because I would have had to learn how to do things for that. But I already had the tools in my toolbox because of the mystery box. So for myself, I look at the mystery box from the behind the scenes aspect more so than like the moment to moment when we sat down or watched a thing or recorded a thing. I look at it in the behind the scenes construction of it.
Experimental in the post-production.
Yeah. But the mystery box, for you, I remember when I pitched it to you, you were a little unsure. You were like, I don't know. You gave me the Bartek kind of like raised eyebrow. I don't know about that. And
very ironic because I love the mystery box a lot. One of the points that I actually wrote down was also the editing made it extra funny. That was always a really big treat. The mystery box is the only one of our shows that I've listened to every episode of. With the other ones, I listened to, with Unappreciated Masterpieces, I think up to Land of the Dead. It was like the third episode we recorded in this room, I think. And I haven't listened to any Pictures Powwow or Televisual Event, I don't think.
Wow.
But yeah, the mystery box, that was a lot of fun because with everything that we do, it's always us watching it in our own time, then coming together and, talking about it, doing our episode. With that's the only show that we've done for our own show where we like watch them together and we have like an off mic pre-recording riff, like while watching it.
And we get to know how the other feels about it in real time.
Yeah, and in a way kind of like workshopping what we're going to do in the episode. And it was a really fun element and we got to build off of that. Like you would listen to the mystery box and there are so many parts where, we would ask each other a leading question and we're ready for all of them. Like in the past, like we would have, the episode of Flipper where we were like, oh, is the keyword evidence? And that was like a glorious moment where we were on the same page. But with the mystery box, like we had all of those ready. And it's like, oh, do you remember what happened next? I'm like, oh, yes, of course. And then even just like, forgetting some details and it's still fresh in our heads so we can help each other out. So it was a very fun show to, talk, to, explore the things that we were covering in the episode. What else have I got written here?
Yeah, I'll say too, like, just to be like humble for a second, I like now the mystery box more because it allowed you and whatever guest to infuriate me, because I would infuriate you, but mainly guests with Unappreciated Masterpieces. I always think of when we did Unappreciated Masterpieces for Major Pain. Mm-hmm. We had guests on, one of them didn't like the film very much, and they were doing like why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that? And I always had like a smart little retort back because I paid attention and just got the feedback of, you really paid, you really paid attention, didn't you? Like, yeah. And I'm like, that's my job. I'm here to do that. And I do get enjoyment of kind of riling people up in that fun way. But I think with the mystery box, you and the guest would really get a good mileage out of me getting wound up, because I get so angry in these movies, these movies that we would do, like, especially when it would be like, I'm like, this is porn, and you're like, no, it isn't. And I'm like, no, not really. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's so even now I'm getting like wound up about the mystery box, but I think just. I like the role reversal for that, because I do wonder sometimes, I'm like, am I too in charge of the pod in that way? But no, I think we give each other a good dishing out over the years, but especially with the mystery box, it was like you and the guests would always have a good time just kind of going in.
There was an element of guilt on my part where clearly, you were talking sense. You at one point, just exasperatedly, you told me, like, you can dislike this stuff, right? And I remember hearing that and being like, yeah, that's true, but I'm just enjoying how much this is riling you up so much that I kind of want to just, keep stoking this fire.
Because I think you were still being in comedic mode and I was trying to be in analytical mode, and it was just fire and ice,
Oh, yeah, the big one there would be, when we did Vietnam War Story in that second episode that had the I'm just trying to be a guy thing. Like Will and I, we were like, this is like comedy gold. Like we're just trying to milk this thing, and you're trying to bring in like the actual analysis of this scene. It's
I
like,
want to know what they were trying to say.
It's like, Ryan, he's just trying to be a guy.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? He's
Yeah,
trying to be a guy.
Like a spoiler for a later thing, we're going to talk about like favorite episodes. I wrote down in my list like most of the mystery box,
of course,
because most of them were just so much fun. As we got along, like obviously another fun element of it is like, are we going to get trash or treasure? Treasure.
Mm-hmm.
And we did get a little bit of trash as it went along, and those episodes,
boring trash.
Yeah, not as fun. Like we did Bored Silly as I think the third last one
in the name.
Yeah, and it's not like. We had another question about like what's the worst things we ever covered, and I didn't put Bored Silly on that list just because it's a little too throwaway, like nothing. But I was thinking about some of the conversations we had just in my memory, and there was one point where we asked ourselves like, oh, which of the, you, me, and Reese, which of the three guys do we all like think we were as kids? And we all said the same one because they were the tamest one, and then that just like completely shut down the conversation.
Oh. You've said to me that the mystery box is your favorite that we've done. You said it here. Why? Why does that one stand out above all else? Because, the mystery box, like, it has a pretty strict format to it. So that could also be limiting. But also there is like we said, the mystery angle. Like, what do we get, trash or treasure? But, like, why is that the one that you still lean towards as like, that's the show for us?
I think, I might still lean into it. I guess just the whole experience of it. Like, it's not just coming in, do the 1 hour recording and leave. Like, it's like a whole day kind of thing almost. Or at least, a couple of hours. Got to sit down, we got to watch it, riff it out, and then we finally get to put it together. We get to imagine like, how it will get edited together. And then finally, when I do get to listen to it, you obviously have to put in a lot more work into it because you edited it, but I got to appreciate, the work that you did do, and it enhanced it so much. Like, I still remember the Mr. Bones episode. We had the running joke about every time we couldn't remember Leletti's name, we just said lentils, and you would use like every single instance in chronological order of like when her name was said. We also had the running joke that started off as me like poking the bull of like, come on, Ryan, you got to pick a favorite character, where we would just have like a skit at the end. Yes. And they became more and more ludicrous as it went on.
We became escaping the room and all of that.
Yeah. At first, because it was literally just the premise of like, Ryan, we need to defeat someone, and there's only 3 of us. We will literally only defeat them when there's a 4th person. It has to be someone from the film. Who's the most reliable? It was just me trying to get you to admit who your favorite character was. And then we just evolved from there to the point that, we did an RPG turn-based battle at one point.
So the mystery box finished up because COVID happened.
That was a big one, yeah.
And we keep saying it will come back. I don't know when. It's just one of those things where life has changed, and we still love it, and what you said, it's an event. But we did, during the pandemic, a televisual event, which was, let's talk about some shows that we like, or we want to talk about, or we haven't had the chance to, because we cover movies. So let's talk about shows. And that was obviously a short-lived thing because it was during lockdowns and stuff. And it's hard to be able to look back on it because, for us here in Melbourne, we were in lockdown after lockdown after lockdown. It was a very depressing time for the world, but it felt, it was very depressing here, where it's like you get a taste of like freedom and then back into extreme lockdowns. And so I look at a televisual event as a comfy show because we were recording separately. It was hard. But we're talking about these shows that brought us some level of comfort, just fun, even intense shows like Twin Peaks: The Return, and just getting to chat with one another about things that we do off mic. Like, what shows have you been watching? Oh, you should check out this show. Oh, yeah, I think you'd like this. And being able to bond over shows that we grew up with or ones that we've seen recently. And so with the televisual event, that's one where I'm kind of glad it came out, like we came about with it the way we did and when it came out, because for that period of time, it was very dark days, but we just had like, hey, we're going to watch a whole show in like a month and see how we feel about it. And often they would be funny shows, but even then, some of them would be like, we're going to do a whole like little adventure with Twin Peaks and get around to doing Fire Walk with Me for the one show, and then let's do the return for the next, because I like that. Let's do these things.
With Twin Peaks The Return, that was more of like an opportunistic grab, because like I had just watched it not too long prior.
Yep.
And then we started doing this show, and it's like, let's do that for the first episode. I'm like, oh, okay. So I didn't watch it with the intention of ever podcasting about it. It was eventual preparation for doing Fire Walk with Me. With Televisual Event, I thought of it more as a thing where we had more distinct roles, I guess, as hosts. Because so obviously there was the element of like, more time to prepare for it because we had to, watch a whole show, but all the shows were relatively short.
Yeah.
Like
it was just, relatively like how challenging are we going to be on ourselves?
Yeah, they were all like, Australian, British, or I can't remember what Gerard.
Oh, he's American. Yeah.
That was an American show?
Gerhard Reinke, yeah.
Wanderlust was American?
Yeah.
Okay, well still
Pretty
that was pretty short at least. But yeah, they were all shorter shows, and they were all shows that you picked, and I was fine with that because, you've got a lot more television stuff. I think shortly after we finished, I'm like, what would I have chosen? And the only thing that ever really came to my mind, and you've already seen it now, was like War in the Pocket, which we've watched now in our own time.
The Gundam show, yes.
Yeah, and that only came, a few years ago for me when I watched it. But yeah, it was one that took a lot more preparation to be ready for, but in a way that kind of made it more rewarding.
Yeah.
And because I tend to, here and there when I do watch a show, I do tend to binge it a little bit. And so that made it a pretty easy thing for me to get into, like the fact that I could remember everything. And yeah, the distinct thing being that, I was the first time watcher for all of these. You generally had seen all of them. So they've got to be like a dynamic of like, oh, your history with it and also my first impressions.
And we also got to learn that I liked covering shows that are fake shows within shows a lot. It was a recurring thing. It happened a few times with that, where like Gerhard Reinke's a fake character with his fake show, Garth Marenghi. I'm sure there was a couple of others that we did.
Posh Nosh was like
Posh
a
Nosh,
TV show.
A fake show. Yeah,
didn't you say that like aired between shows?
Yeah, that was a little like bumper show because it was only each episode was only short. They were like 6-7 minutes.
It made
long.
it very easy to watch on YouTube.
Yeah, they're all on YouTube. It's the only place you can find it in nice low quality. That was the thing too. Like some of these, it's like you can only find them on YouTube, which is kind of depressing because it's like these are good shows.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot with the Australian ones because
double the fist.
Yeah, when you talk about like availability, like some of these shows were from our ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Company.
Yeah.
Or Corporation.
Commission.
One of them. It's our ABC, not the American one. And they did have ABC stores where they sold like some of their media, but that's long gone. And yeah, you talked a lot about how, these things are just not archived and available.
No, it's still the same. Nothing's changed.
And it was a miracle that we were able to do something. Like I remember with Review with Miles Barlow, you had the files and you had to like upload them to our Google Drive temporarily so I could watch them.
I'm getting upset about it just now. Just getting upset because these are great shows and why aren't they available? And these are shows with like names and it's just Review with Miles Barlow is where Margot Robbie started her acting career. That's the first thing she did. And people can't watch it if they're like Margot Robbie completionists. They have to really go over backwards to get it, which is funny to say, but like I'm a completionist with some actors. I go back, I want to see their first role. And if they're Australian, you're fucked, buddy. You're fucked if you're going to find an Australian actor's first role because it's probably not available to find, even if it's a big show or a show with some status. And so I'm getting mad, George.
I'll change the topic by transitioning to something you just said there. We had a show that we never did, but we recorded the first episode for, but never released.
Yeah, it just didn't come together.
Yeah, we had the idea of, it was called the Lloyd Files. It was going to be a podcast where we reviewed everything that the actor Christopher Lloyd ever did. And the only thing we ever recorded for it, I remember it was around the time we did St. Trinian's. We recorded an episode on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and that was at the old place. So that was
was
within,
at my previous place.
So that would have been within like the first 2 and a bit years that we were doing podcasting. And I remember, even though, you know, it was a brief experience and, you know, you can kind of forget about it, it was a kind of wake-up call for me. Because, you know, we talked about how the only thing we were doing at that point was Unappreciated Masterpieces. I said that it was, you know, a comedy show, a bit experimental, and very off the cuff. This was the first recorded thing that we had to do where we had to like do research and actually do analysis. And I remember walking in, like you told me, like, oh, find these newspaper articles about like at the time the reviews for it, look up some stuff here and there. And I did it, but like kind of half-heartedly. And I walked in thinking like, oh, this will just be like supplementary stuff. We're still gonna, you know, go in for the gimmick thing of like, you know, we're gonna be focusing mostly on Christopher Lloyd. And I distinctly remember there was one moment where you were talking about how it was a scene out in the yard. And, you know, there's the high fence that keeping these, you know, inmates,
these patients
rather, well, with the content of the, you know,
I know.
These patients inside the facility, the outside nature there's a tree next to it, and you said like, oh, there's this beautiful shot where like a squirrel, you know, goes from the fence into the tree, and it's like, you know, the ease of going from like captivity to freedom, you know, artifice to nature. And I remember hearing that being like, man, I am not, you know, on the same page as this guy when it comes to like film analysis. And it was a fundamental, you know, important moment for me where I'm like, yeah, I think if we're going to be talking about more serious things in the future, I need to step myself up.
And now we've covered so many serious films on Pictures Powwow because we did wrap up Unappreciated Masterpieces. It just felt like the time. You know, we were still enjoying it, but it felt like we need to kind of wind down on this. You know, the commentaries were long and we covered so many. There was always more films to do, but it just felt like we need a shake up. We need to do something. And we were like, why don't we just do a show where you recommend a film, I recommend a film, and we get listeners to recommend a film and we just talk about them, you know, get to cut through some of those gimmicks and artifice and, you know, heighten nature and maybe still, you know, deliver it the way that we do with some funny bits here and there. But like, it was also, for my mind, I often chose the Unappreciated Masterpieces. It was just kind of, again, like the role that was like, well, I got a vibe, but obviously, you know,
there was maybe like a dozen and a half that I picked.
And sometimes guests would pitch some to us as well. And it's like, oh yeah, let's do that. And I thought this would be a great excuse to, you know, share the load in a way where it's like you get the listeners to contribute, you contribute, I contribute.
Yeah.
And, you know, just even it out. And also, yeah, start to refine our tastes and the way we talk about movies with more serious picks as well as comedic and different genres, different eras. Because again, Unappreciated Masterpieces, although it wasn't strictly children's entertainment, it was the spine of that show. We would come back to it. And so we've done Pictures Powwow and, you know, we're still doing Pictures Powwow. And I love Pictures Powwow. I love just being able to discover new movies. That's what I think of this as, is like, this is the discovery show where it's like, who knows what Bartek's going to pick? Who knows what the listening people are going to pick? Who knows what I'm going to pick? Sometimes I push myself to pick movies that I haven't even seen, or just, I use Pictures Powwow sometimes as the method of showing my friend a thing that I think they should see, and or, oh, I should get around to that movie. I know, I've got a movie podcast. I'll use that as an excuse to get around to that movie that I've been meaning to watch. And, you know, I love films and I love discovering films and I love talking about films. And in real life, like off the pod, that's the nature in which I do it so many times over. And now we have Pictures Powwow as that kind of extension where, like, we would, after recording Unappreciated Masterpieces, we would have these long discussions about, like, oh, this movie, oh, you should really check this film out, or this TV show, and this and this and this. And now Pictures Powwow has taken up that place where so at the current moment, instead of talking about movies and shows the way we did after we record, because we do it on the pod now, we are talking about games and stuff more so.
Oh, is that foreshadowing?
Yeah, when's our game podcast?
The game podcast.
That would be a doozy. Like, I would be up for it. I currently play a game every month according to my tracking. Surprise, like one game a month I've managed to do, which for someone like myself who I don't consider, but that's a whole other can of worms. But yeah, Pictures Powwow. I like the show. I love it, and I'm just so appreciative of being able to learn more about your tastes in film and learn more about my own, and also our listeners. Like, there is a definite pattern to some of our listeners, whether they're recurring listener picks or the one-off picks. It's like, what do they think we want to watch? Oh, they think we want to watch this, or, oh, they're suggesting this. And, I'll just say it up front, right here. Thank you to the listeners, especially the Czech listeners out there who said, like, you guys want Czech films? Here are a bunch of Czechoslovakian films, because I wouldn't have known to find those ones. And like, how do you find them? And we've been so fortunate that we have people who are so passionate about films that help us be able to discover more and find them as well. Like, it's just been such a blessing. And, we are big fans of Czechoslovakian movies. And yeah, we've been so lucky to have listeners from Czech to say, hey, thank you for covering, or from that area or from those areas, say, hey, we love that you're covering these movies. And we're like, we've had people like recognize that we have a passion, and hey, here's another movie that may help fuel that passion for you.
Yeah, we got a lot. And even like the most recent one we did is probably our least favorite one, but still I was like humming the theme song to it just yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Saksana. Yeah, I'm always looking forward to doing more of those.
Of course. So Pictures Powwow, our current staple. How do you feel?
Yeah, it's definitely a special show to me as well. Obviously, discovering films like since we started the podcast, I haven't watched as many movies in my own time as I had in the past. Like, I remember
you would go to the movies with your mother a lot.
I would go to movies with my
mum
a lot, but also I remember like early university, I would like watch a film every Friday, just like, oh, we got a bunch of DVDs lying around the house, let's watch something, or I can go online, find something. And this has kind of, been the podcast overall, really, but Pictures Powwow especially is kind of guaranteed that I've seen a movie. Like, whenever we meet up with our friend Will, who's been a guest on many episodes, he would always ask us,
first guest,
of course. He would always ask us, like, oh, you guys seen any movies lately? And most of my answers are like, well, we saw this on the podcast. It's like, I always have at least something. And I've even lent him one of the films we did this year, and he enjoyed that one. Yeah, To Be or Not to Be.
And he's written some down that we've covered. He said, "Oh, that sounds interesting. I'm going to put that one down and see if I can get around to it." And
we haven't had him on in a while. I think Are We Done Yet was the last time. That was quite a while ago. But yeah, Pictures Powwow. Building off that point I mentioned before about the Lloyd Files episode, I also do see this show kind of as a self-improvement thing for me. Because it just kind of hit me, especially in university, that, I've always done like media studies in high school and, film subjects at university. But it occurred to me that a lot of it kind of was, I guess, like a rote learning thing where it's like, the teacher gives us the analysis and we kind of memorize that and we shape that information they've given us into essays or projects or whatever. Like, I remember there was one subject at university called like Mind Screen or something, and I got just like a flat 50% on that. I think the teacher was just being generous because I think I didn't get anything in that subject. I just wasn't ready for it. And then, talking with you on the podcast about films, you're very good at it. Like I said before, like I kind of thought like, oh, I have to kind of keep up with that. So it does feel like I'm in the deep end sometimes, but, if I walk out of an episode and I feel like I've kept up with you, that I've been doing the right thing. I really mean this, by the way. And I feel like I have improved my own film analysis skills by doing the podcast. It's that, age-old thing of like, you learn more doing than you do just sitting in a classroom.
Because you have to be able to articulate your own opinion.
Mm.
It's one thing to hear other people, to read other people's stuff, but like expressing your own thing. And, Unappreciated Masterpieces was a learning thing for me because it's so easy, and this is true, to critique something in a negative sense, to say like, this sucks, here's why it sucks, and point out like bad things. But you often find that it's actually quite difficult to be constructive and positive and like point out like why these things work, other than to say it's good. Why is it good? How does it do that? What are the efforts put in? What are this, and this? And that's how I've really grown over the podcast, and it's something that I've really been wanting to achieve, because it's like, we've covered bad movies for sure, and we've covered good bad movies, but I get much more thrills out of covering great films and still wrestling with why I find them great. Like, Memories of Matsuko is a film that we covered not too long ago that I think is like one of the greatest films that we've ever covered. But I had a difficult time being able to like articulate like, why is this so great? But it was a thrill to be in that zone and just discover that with you. And that's Pictures Powwow in a nutshell, as well as taking these skills that we've learned from the previous shows and kind of melding them together for our discussions that we have today. And yeah, I just absolutely am still learning and growing, and so are you with the things that we do. And it's just the two of us now. Like, we get guests from time to time, but back in the day too, I think we would rely on having a third wild card person to bounce off of, to be like, okay, Bartek and I kind of know how each other feel, or like have our comedic duo nature in rhythm with one another, but let's bring in one of our friends that the other person hasn't met before, or family member, or whoever it is.
Yeah, or a person from university that maybe one of us knows a bit better than the other.
Mm-hmm. And I loved having guests. I do miss it. Again,
I miss it so much.
COVID was a thing that really hampered our guest stuff and just growing up. But I think just before we get into that, we haven't mentioned too, but we've been guests on other people's podcasts over the years. And I think that has been not only just nice, like it's nice to go on somebody else's podcast and have other podcasters on our show, but like I think we figured out like what we are as a podcasting team when we're on other people's podcasting teams.
Well, I was going to bring up, in the last couple of years, most of the guests that we've had on have been other podcasters. Like, we've had a lot more American accent guests, than any other really in recent years. From our friends at the Contrarians, Chats, Last Best B5. A couple of other ones that aren't American, actually, British. Filmbusters. And yeah, it has been interesting. I always found myself that when we had the three guests, that was kind of like the default. Like, there's Ryan, the guy that I do this mostly with, but then there's the guest. We accommodate them, but we still kind of, work together as a trio. And I always found that, and I think this has been consistent. Every time there's been more than three people, like four, I usually take a bit more of a low-key role. Like, I tend to just like let the other three talk, and then I just chime in with maybe observations that I think about a bit more.
Yeah,
because I guess I'm just still need to really get comfortable with having four people.
Yeah, it's a different feeling. But when it comes to having guests and not having guests, how has that been for you over this last 10 years? Because, we were just guests. Sometimes we wouldn't do a podcast because we couldn't get a guest.
It would be so rare that, we wouldn't have a guest. Like, before, I was looking into all of the Unappreciated Masterpieces episodes. I was going down the YouTube playlists, and I was trying to just guess ahead of time, like when I see the title, like, oh, this was the guest for that one, this was the guest for that one. It eventually got to the point where I like started like getting it a bit mixed up, or I took a wild guess and I was right. The man one really threw me off. I forgot that was a Mark one. But yeah, it's a wistful thing for me. I really, really enjoyed having, that extra, perspective come in. Having like recurring guests and like building off of previous dynamics. Like whenever we'd have Reese on, there would be, his little personality quirks that we, build off of. Will, we know his sense of humor really well because we did drama with him.
Or people that we know have such strong confidence and bravado, but then when we put them on the podcast, it throws them off in a fun way, like our friend Sam Noonan, because we throw him off on purpose because it's fun. Because he's such a confident guy.
I don't even know that I do it on purpose.
Well, we did one time.
With the Charlie's Angel one, yeah, definitely, actually, I did.
And Zathras. Zathura. See, I'm going to B5 again. Where Zathura, we were like, okay, we're going to talk poorly about this one just to throw Sam off.
No, it wasn't even. I remember.
Well, we won't tell him.
Yeah, no, it wasn't even about him. I still remember we did like 1, 2, 3 episodes, and then you came up with the idea of like, oh, you know what? For the 20th episode, let's do something different, and like talk about a film badly. It had nothing to do with who the guest was. But you picked like, oh, let's do Zathura, and it just happened to be him, and he took it very personally
because we didn't tell him.
Yeah, we didn't tell him, of course, but it wasn't because it was him. It was just that was the episode where we were going to do it.
But it rattled him for the rest of every appearance.
Every time he's come on,
he's never been able to recover from it. Even though we've never done it again. We've all been nice to him, but he's never. Or your friend Oliver came in with such confidence, and he was so respectful, and then quickly he's turned into like the curmudgeon who comes on, who's so annoyed with me specifically because I introduce us and the podcast, then the guest instead of the guest first. He's like, you should introduce me first. Like, shut the fuck up. And things like that. Or for me too, with guests, I think, to get personal for a second, just 1 second, please. 1 second of personal. The rest of this has been corporate professionalism.
Take a few dozen
but,
seconds. But
it's the last time we've seen some of these people.
Yeah.
I just mentioned Oliver. Last time you saw Oliver until very recently was for the podcast, and then
no, it was for a movie night.
Oh, was it? Didn't we do a podcast before? Oh,
yes,
no,
but it was
we did
Will.
With our friend.
It was the Chicken Little episode,
right? But
Will.
we have had people. We have had guests that we haven't seen again.
Yeah, last time we saw a lot of people were on podcasts
who were friends or acquaintances. And just because of how things go when you grow up and you change your lives, and social media's changed a lot, like people no longer on social media that we knew, that's like, how do we get in contact with this person now, or whatever the case may be, or they've moved countries. And so there is a looking back on our archive. It's like, oh, remember this person? That was the last time we saw them. Will we ever see them again? Oh, man, I hope they're doing all right.
Yeah.
I can re-listen to this podcast and be brought back to like, what a great dynamic we had with said person, and man, I hope it happens again. And if not, like, this was a great way to kind of wrap it up, because like in reality, people don't have like the recorded moment of the last time they hung out.
Yeah.
And it's like, and these events that we would do would be like a joyous time for the most part that we would hang out.
Yeah, here's a 3-hour chunk of you, me, and Oliver talking about the core.
yeah. Here's like a couple of hours of you, myself, and Michabella talking about Matilda. These are the things.
Yeah. Wait, Madeline.
Sorry, Madeline, not Matilda. Madeline.
I've never seen Matilda because I didn't have a childhood.
You didn't have. Where were you?
Exactly.
Where were you?
Oh no, is it Ryan from 10 years ago? Yeah, it's I guess that's also another part of life too, where there are people we haven't seen since high school, people we haven't seen through uni. But then when we started the podcast, there was like this kind of second wind of that where it's like, oh, let's bring in all the big hitters from university. And, there were a lot of people there that I'd never really interacted with, but I knew just because we had classes together. And I remember the first time we recorded with Alana Summers. It was for Night and Day. Like, she would always, I knew her from university, but I never really talked to her. And, we got along really well in that. I was like, oh, this is a lot of fun. And then the next time we watch Urutsuki Doji together, talk about a big relationship leap for that.
That's a trial by fire.
Yeah, Sam Langsford as well.
Yeah.
One of my favorite episodes was one of the ones where he was a guest on, and it was amazing. And other Sam Core?
Yeah.
Yeah, when we had him on
Sam
for
Core.
101 Dalmatians, that's also one of my favorite episodes that we did because it was just so funny.
And he's a guy that I knew just very briefly from University Theatre. I was like, oh, this guy's nice. We should have him on. And he's just such a great guy, such a team player. And we had a great, great group of friends and friends of friends. And, you more so than me, obviously, got to reconnect with some people because of the podcast. Like, you've brought in some high school friends occasionally that maybe you hadn't seen or talked to in a while, but they're movie buffs or they're movie people. Like, hey, I would love to come on, or we'd come on, and that's good too. You know, like that's kind of a sweet thing. But a big relationship building aspect for us on the podcast was for Unappreciated Masterpieces. I gave us a little fun time at the end, which was I would read IMDb reviews.
Yes.
And again, I remember this was a thing that you were a little bit like, oh, okay, maybe, all right. And the first couple of times, like, oh, yeah, and we had some hits and whatever. But what I would do is I would read these insane IMDb reviews or just weird IMDb reviews, because IMDb is like, it almost feels like an official thing, like very certified, very, this is a proper site.
It's the database for movies on the internet.
But the people write reviews on there
are just normal people.
But no one reads them. No one really reads the reviews on IMDb. And since we've started this podcast, sites like Letterboxd exist now, where it's like writing reviews for movies is like a social media site onto itself. Like, you go to Letterboxd to read pithy reviews or whatever on a movie. But no one really did that with IMDb. But I knew, because I'm a nerd, and I would scroll through IMDb trivia and factoids and all this. I would read some, and I've always noticed that there's crazy shit in there that goes like unmonitored. There's no one putting the kibosh on like hateful, crazy nonsense, whatever, wide spectrum of stuff on IMDb. And I would always bring some in. But I think for me, distinctly remembering the hook, line, and sinker moment of the IMDb reviews was our Christmas episode, I'll Be Home for Christmas.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Where I read the broken English, whatever, if it was translated through a translated thing, and you like crying with laughter at me reading this review. And I was like, okay, now we can say that this segment of the show is going to be a mainstay, because I was worried even up until then, like, is this working? Like, I feel like I'm enjoying these, and I guess enjoying these. I wasn't sure how much you were or the listeners. But from that point on with the Christmas one, boom, I was like, boom, okay, got it. This is it. We're in. This is it.
It's crazy for me to think of a time where I wasn't into them. Like, I almost don't believe you, but I guess I have to trust you on that. Yeah. I definitely remember that having the first one where I burst into laughter. And a lot of it was that they were clearly trying to reference Home Improvement, and I had like no knowledge of it. So it just seemed like crazy random stuff. Like, why are you talking about Tim Allen?
But the IMDb reviews were always a treasure, because sometimes we would discover really personal, sentimental stories in there. Like, I always wanted to vary it up. I didn't want them just to be crazy, but sometimes they were genuinely sweet ones in there. I was referencing this last night with you and my wife about how there's this one review, and I'm pretty sure it was for Empire Records, in which it was like this person writing about how they moved in with their partner, and they both, as they were unpacking, revealed their DVD copy of Empire Records. They were showing like, oh my God,
I have a copy of this. Well, I have a copy of this. I have a copy of this. And then we both pulled out the same DVD at the same time.
And we knew it was for real. And I'm like, oh, still makes me weepy now. I'm like, that's so nice.
It's a really nice story. With the people who want to tell a story in their IMDb reviews, they're the ones that we like.
But for your money, what is the whole deal with the IMDb reviews in your mind? Because it's been so long now since we've had to, obviously since Unappreciated Masterpieces, but
eventually you stopped doing them, so I took up the mantle. And I was also doing quizzes and on funtrivia.com, where I just remember with the trivia, just to talk about that quickly. I think the first time was for Scooby-Doo 2, where
we still reference it to this day about like Marky Mark and the entire Funky Bunch. Yeah.
As of this recording, we are recording this like the day before our Happiness of the Katakuris episode comes out. So currently the most recent episode that has been released is Uncharted, which had Mark Wahlberg.
You did get Mark right. Yeah,
Yes, I
Marky
did.
Mark.
Marky Mark, and obviously,
Funky Bunch.
he was known for being with the Funky Bunch. And the very first trivia thing that really got us was in Scooby-Doo 2, there's a character that's played by Seth Green. But this trivia question was asking you, who played this character, Patrick, in Scooby-Doo 2? One of the answers was obviously the correct one, Seth Green. And there was another one, I don't remember. Then Will Smith. It's like, okay, that's a very big departure.
For the nerd.
And I remember when I mentioned that one, you were like, oh, that's the punchline there. He's black. What
and he's a cool guy.
Yeah. And then the final one was not Mark Wahlberg, not just Marky Mark, but Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch.
The entire Funky Bunch.
So just imagining this whole group. I don't even know how big the group is. Just being this one guy that's Seth Green.
I remember you bringing these trivia points, these little trivia quizzes in, and it was just like, okay, now Bartek's bringing his stuff in. And with the IMDb reviews, you were loving them so much. And sometimes you were like, oh, I was having a little look myself. And I was like, you know what? I think you should have a go on this because I've had a go on it for a good while. I'm choosing the movies. I'm doing this. I think it's only fair that you find the reviews too now. Like you have a go of this.
I still remember that there was one very magical time where it was a movie that we were going to do, and I was scrolling down to go look at the trivia, but I scrolled a little too far, and I saw like a snippet of a review that was titled Cameron Diaz, and I read like the first sentence, and I scrolled back up like I don't want to read that. I'm sure Ryan's going to read it in the episode, and then he did.
It's time to talk about our friend, Tyler Lee Jewell, real reason.
Was that the Annie episode?
Of course it was.
Yes.
Of course it was, when we did 2014's Annie.
That was, and just, by the way, that was earlier in the podcast than I expected.
Mm-hmm. We, through our discovery of these IMDb reviews, we stumbled across a man. Not just a man, a myth, a legend, a figure, that writes his reviews of movies, and he has a very specific way of talking, and he has certain reference points that he likes to bring up. Tyler Lee Jewell is the man, and he references himself in third person a lot, which is very good. And it's like he's writing a letter to the individual in the movie, pleading with the but sometimes not. Sometimes it's a little bit like to the side, pleading with them to pick up his movie idea, and why won't like Macaulay Culkin get back to him?
Well, he was literally asking Cameron Diaz in that review to get in contact with Macaulay Culkin because he's in the straitjacket mental hospital or something.
Has she even been in a movie with Macaulay Culkin? Why wouldn't she be able to contact him? Oh, I didn't mention this, but Paul Giamatti is a actor, a sacrificial lamb, a sacred cow actor. I think Cameron Diaz is a sacred cow actress. I think she is one that we've underappreciated in that way. I think she's just popped up and she's had such an eclectic range of things, but also it's just so Cameron Diaz. See, like, we had Vanilla Sky, and it was like she did that the same year as Charlie's Angels. Insane.
I can go with that, but I was kind of thinking more Jennifer Garner. She popped up a lot.
Oh yeah, but always as like the woman role. Like, who do we need as the woman? Jennifer Garner will do.
She had 13 going on 30.
So, she's the main woman in that one, so that's fine. But the whole thing is she's the adult woman. But the IMDb reviews, we just had to mention it because we still reference so many. Like Zathura, there was one where it's like, and the lesson is never ever eat.
It was like the end of a sentence. Like we
remember,
learned never X, Y, and never ever eat.
And it was just a non sequitur. You always reference this one about a person and their little buddy, their little friend,
their 9-year-old buddy. Was that Baby's Day Out?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did Baby's Day Out, and there was a review from this adult man talking about how he watched this film with his 9-year-old buddy, and it's like, what does that mean? We'll never know the context.
There's a lot of classics. Yeah, The Flipper. There was one where someone had a screenplay. That was their review. I can't remember what it was, but I remember Starsky and Hutch had one that made me piss myself laughing. It was something about like a motorcycle stunt or something, some car stunt.
I always come back to Thunderpants, where there was this woman who said that her son enjoyed it, but he also happened to be autistic. Like, disclaimer.
Was that?
He's also autistic. And then we had a review later on that was like, the Germans loved this movie. It's like, of course they did. Like, it's a big German film.
Well, it was a co-production, yeah.
Co-production. And I can't remember, were they Swiss? It was like, this review was written by 2 Swiss people or something. Like, I watched this with 2 Swiss people.
It was something about, like, the person's like, I put this on when I had a bunch of Swiss visitors or something.
They loved it.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Yeah, these are the things that we come back to, because they were just outsider opinions too, because we would think of the movies in a certain way. And then when we would talk about it, I would have an ace up my sleeve going, well, I know the review will bring up this later on, but in a perverted, weird way.
Well, it wasn't a perverted one, but I remember
Sometimes.
in Baby's Day Out, I mentioned at one point during the episode, like, oh yeah, this part of the film reminds me of this episode of Popeye. And you were like, oh, stop talking about that. It's going to come up later. And it was an IMDb review, like, right at the end of the episode. Yeah. My friend Jono, who was on the Green Hornet episode, he was only on the Green Hornet episode, hasn't been on since.
He's always welcome to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. He recommended, I think, She's the Man,
Nice,
the Amanda Bynes one to us. But there is one review that I've told him about and showed him that he loved, and it was from the Monkey Bone episode. It was the guy who hates Henry Selick.
Personally, it was Tim Burton secretly. He's like, I made A Nightmare Before Christmas. It's like, no, Henry Selick did. Fuck you, it's me, Tim Burton. I'll make fucking any movie you made.
There was one part in it where he's like, screw you, Henry Selick. Screw you for making Coraline or something. It's like, you bring Coraline into this?
It's always, the next part we have here is a tough thing, because we've covered hundreds now. And it's always difficult when you're asked, what's the best blank?
I'm the worst person at these
What's
questions.
the best movies we have found through the podcast? And that's even different. Like, it's not just we covered, it's what have we found through this podcast that are like standouts to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote this question down, and even I was like, Jesus, how am I going to decide this? Because there's just so many over the years, and I even now I was like, oh man, how do I narrow this down?
Yeah, I took a bit of a shotgun approach. I just wrote down a lot as I was scrolling through, and I made 2 lists. Because I wasn't entirely sure about the implication of the question, because like the best movies we found through the podcast, I didn't know whether that meant like us individually or together. So I made one list where I think it was, fairly unanimous. Like, these are ones like, that we really cling to. And then I made one just for myself. I think maybe the thing there was that I was looking into all of these episodes and finding out which ones neither of us had seen before. And then the ones that, definitely you've seen before, but I hadn't.
Nice. I kind of I went to the different eras of the film discussions. I didn't do a televisual event in there. But, that's how I went about it. To kind of go in reverse with Pictures Powwow, you also make it an effort to give us foreign films as a thing. And that's really yielded a lot of results. The Indian movies come to my mind because I had never really encountered them in full. I knew of them, I'd seen bits and pieces, but not a full movie. And there are some that I'm like, I appreciate more so now, or I appreciate in the collective sense of like, as we've built up the Indian movie catalog, I'm like, I actually really like this movie, but if maybe you pitched it as the first movie, I wouldn't have liked Lagan as much. And I bring up that one because, I didn't even know it was an Academy Award nominated film. Like, this was how naive and blind I was to this. And on paper, it has all the things that I shouldn't like. It's a movie about cricket.
I remember when I mentioned it's about cricket, you had like an immediate reaction to that. I'm like, Ryan, I'm recommending it.
It's like nearly
gotta be good.
4 hours long. It's like absurdly long. It's got like the one Khan I don't know. So I was a little bit like, I don't know about this. And I just really wasn't, I wasn't aware of it, and I wasn't too sure what we were going to get out of it. And then I was like really surprised. Like, I'm still tentative when I bring it up to people, but I'm like, it's a really good movie. Like, it's got amazing pacing considering what's going on with it. And I appreciate and absolutely commend and give a full round of applause to it being one of the greatest damnations of British colonialism that we've ever watched. And we've done The Nightingale. Like, it's the thing, like with these movies we've done over the years, there's lots of recurring things that happen in them. And like with Indian movies and Australian movies, there is a lot of wagging the finger at the British imperial system. Like we did Break and Morant, and that talked about the British way of doing things. But this film, it's like, it's a cricket movie. It's a cricket movie, and yet it has some of the best insights into how pervasive and malicious the British Empire was. And I really do like just Lagan. Like Lagan doesn't have to do that, but it does. It also does. Like that comes to my mind. Confessions is another one that was found through the podcast because of you.
Yeah, that was a blind one. I'm like, Jesus, it's Spooky Month. I always struggle in Spooky Month. We're recording this during Spooky Month, and I'm somehow making it through. And I was like, all right, what am I going to do? It's a foreign pick in Spooky Month. Maybe something Japanese. Japan has horror films. Let's look up, I want something more psychological though. And I just happened to come across, Koku Haku or whatever it's called, Confessions. I'm like, all right, this one, I hope it's good.
And that helped to give us memories of Matsuko, which, I had expectations of, but still discovered through the podcast. And it's because of you finding Confessions. It's that way of so often we like one thing and we go, I want to see more from that actor, director, writer. Let's go. Let's discover more. And we've managed to come
We've got a couple of trails of that in Pictures Powwow.
Yeah.
Satoshi Kon, that Takashima, whatever his name is.
Takashima.
Something Shima.
The director of Confessions.
I might be getting it wrong, but yeah.
But yeah. And even Park Chan-wook, we've covered a couple times. Mm-hmm. And actors and writers, there's so many over the course of this. When it comes to the mystery box, the best one we found through the mystery box is so hard because they make me all so furious.
I mean, for like non-ironic one, Murder Party,
but I chose just one. And it's because it is quintessential mystery box. This is the mystery of the mystery box. You know what it is.
Yes.
It's the rise and fall of Baal. Oh, what did you think it was?
A Stardust.
No. Stardust is just a genuinely great time. But the rise and fall of Baal is a fucking crazy thing I found, where it was this community-made, church-made video. Oh, and it was just the specific group going
community
over
project of some
these religious tales,
Salvation Army people.
And they just made it, and it's just the cover of it is weird, and I found it in an op shop. It's something that no one from outside of that group should see.
Yeah,
but we did because someone donated it, and I bought it because it looked haunted. And it gave us so many hilarious things. There's the Jezebel character in particular. She was a trooper. That actress was that child was so funny. She had so many lines. But to me, like when I think of the mystery box, I'm like, what's the most mysterious one? The Rise and Fall of Baal was always mysterious. And then when we watched it, trying to guess what it was, like still trying to figure out, we kind of nailed it for the most part. And then we got a follow-up interview with one of the people involved, and they gave us
like the editor,
a lot of the context. And it was, even he had mysteries about it. Even he didn't know. Like, even he had some things that he was like, I'm not too sure about this. And that was
people were warning him about like talking to us because like, you don't know who these guys are.
Yeah. But we, even though we made a lot of jokes and had a lot of fun, we were pretty respectful for the most part because these are children. And this is a religious organization, clearly. So.
It was very, very obvious, when watching it. And we even talked about it during the episode. They're like, okay, look at these end credits. It's like a couple of families. This is clearly a local community thing that we've somehow accidentally gotten. It reminded me of so many things that like I did in high school that we had like going on, like school production DVDs of like, oh, here's the DVD of that production. Or like in my primary school when we'd have like the year 6 camp and like, everyone got like a disc of like, slideshows and videos from the camp. And it's like, oh, this is something that, doesn't really have any like expected value for anyone that didn't go to this camp.
It's probably a thing you watch only once.
Yeah. So we watched The Rise and Fall of Baal and it's like, oh, this is not something for us. We've accidentally stumbled upon it,
Yeah.
and we're getting some sort of entertainment.
Here's the
value out
best
of
way
it.
to describe it. It's something that people should not be quoting, but here I am.
Yeah,
Here I am to this day still quoting bits of that film.
By
just
all accounts, we shouldn't know what it is, and the fact that you brought it up here is like, oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
And we did this after watching Finding Emo, which is kind of like the opposite of that, where it's like, this is something we shouldn't see yet was apparently sold.
Yes. And with Unappreciated Masterpieces, there were so many, but I picked the one because I didn't know much about it, and I had expectations of it, and then I had these expectations reaffirmed that, oh, this is just going to be like a chick flick, whatever film, and I got worried before watching it. I'm like, oh no, did I pick not a good movie, not a good movie for this podcast?
Nope, it was a great film.
And what was the film?
Down with Love.
Down with Love. Ewan McGregor, Renee Zellweger, Down with Love. We got to see this in the cinema last year. It screened in the cinema around my birthday. We got to see it and laughing our heads off. So funny, so energetic. I even forgot, this is how crazy it is, I forgot that there's a twist in that movie because I just was so...
I forgot too.
And I was just so like, oh, then when it happened again, I was like, oh, that's right, the twist. I was just so thrilled because I was just enjoying David Hyde Pierce and Sarah Paulson and all of our friends, all of these character actors. And I just love that movie. It was just one where I got told, oh, it's a chick flick, look at it. It's Ewan McGregor, Renee Zellweger doing like one of those 2000 schmoozy
Was
things.
that one of...
And I was walking in with my shoulders slumped going, oh no, have I misjudged this? And then, wow.
Yeah, I think we
absolute winner.
I think we talked about it in the Q&A thing where that was like one of the best things we found on Unappreciated Masterpieces.
Yeah.
Was that one of the films that Rachel had seen before but like didn't really care for, and then we watched it for the podcast and she was like, oh, what was I?
I think so.
Great.
I think so. Or she knew of it and it was like, it didn't look like my type of thing. And I'm like, oh man. Okay. But now we're all converts.
And then
Down with Love.
I remember shortly after we did that episode, I found out that, among the big DVD collection that I mentioned earlier this episode, it's like, oh, we have a DVD copy of that.
And there was a dismay because the director of Down with Love directs the Ant-Man movies for the MCU, which are the most boring films, specifically visually. And I was like, oh no. And then it just made me even sadder in a way because it's like, what happened to the guy who made Down with Love? Like, that's a film with love in the passion of filmmaking. Like, every aspect on a technical level as well is just full of verve and energy and life. And then show you a clip from Ant-Man and compare it to a clip, just any clip from Down with Love.
Maybe,
and you just it's night and day. Not the Tom Cruise, Cameron Diaz film Night and Day, but it's just night and day contrast.
Maybe one day he was just thinking of that title, Down with Love, Down with Love. You know what? Yeah, no more love.
No more love. I'm down with love. He was down with it. But what about you? What is on your list of some of the great things we've discovered through the pod?
Sure. So, again, I've written a shitload here. Not necessarily the best ones, but, ones that I reckon, are worthy of, like, consideration. So with the Unappreciated Masterpieces era, for ones that I think both of us were blind on but surprised by, I've got down Oscar.
Of course.
It's a great one.
Sylvester Stallone's comedy masterpiece.
Yep, we've podcasted about it twice. We did on Contrarians as well. This one, obviously the film itself, but also like the trail that it led us down, The Boy Next Door, with erotic thrillers.
Oh, man.
Yep.
The first edition Iliad.
Ryan and I were hanging out yesterday with a group of people, and we were watching Ghost in the Shell, the second gig, and they started talking about like essays and editions. And when they said first edition, I was just thinking of The Boy Next Door and the first edition.
There's still mysteries of that film yet to be solved. Like, what was in that sink? Was it hair or was it stockings? We'll never know.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that the first time I watched it. Next one, Down with Love, obviously.
Yeah.
Vampire's Kiss. Had you seen that one before?
No, I had not, but I knew of it. That was genuinely amazing, like, because it lives as a meme. But when you actually sit down and watch the movie, and actually get on its wavelength, like actually meet it on its level.
Yeah, later on,
a lot to think about.
Later on, we're going to talk about like favorite episodes of the show, and I actually was considering that one as well because it kind of felt like a Pictures Powwow before Pictures Powwow. Because I remember we got really analytical in it.
Yeah, even discussed does he have rabies?
Yeah. then moving into mystery box, I wrote down Murder Party and Stardust just because those were a lot of fun. And then I got into Pictures Powwow, and it took a while for me to find ones that like neither of us had seen before and we really liked. The first one I got down was Saved.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't talk about that one too much, but I remember really liking that one.
Oh yeah. That is one of those 2000s dark comedy, teen comedy things that does not get enough discussion. It's like, oh, Mean Girls takes up the space, but Saved was
I even remember that was
Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, I remember also that was one of the early ones where we talked a little bit about religion. That's a recurring topic we like, and how that film handled it really interestingly.
Is this, correct me, is this the only Macaulay Culkin film we've covered with him in it?
My goodness.
I think it may be.
You might be right.
We've never done a film with Macaulay. We've mentioned him so many times over the years because we've done films that are riffing on him.
Yeah.
But we've never, I think that's the only time we've ever had Macaulay in a movie.
Possibly, yeah. Jeez. Wow. And it was a good one too.
Yeah, since we've done the pod, a Culkin has won an Oscar now. Crazy to think about.
Yep. Also had down Confessions, which we talked about there. This one, me more so than you. How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, I thought was a lot of fun.
That was very much a you thing, but
especially on a
first time.
Yeah. Bad Genius.
Bad Genius, yes, because I'd heard about that, but and not seen it until we did this podcast. Yeah.
No, that was a great film. Still one of my favorites. Next up on the list, Enough Said.
Oh yes, James Gandolfini.
Yeah. we really loved that one. Penguin Highway is another really good one.
Yes.
I had a lot of fun with that. That's probably one of my favorite main characters that we've had, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yep. The Nanny Diaries, which was a really nice surprise when we checked it out. And then we're starting to get into more recent stuff. A lot of these are foreign ones, actually. Gozu.
Oh, yeah.
I really love
Takashi
Gozu.
Miike's Surreal Dream.
Yep. Pat Labor, and I later wrote down Pat Labor 2.
Oh, yeah. That was a listener suggestion. And it's really got us interested in the Pat Labor franchise, something neither of us had even heard of before, especially a big surprise from you because you know your animes and you were getting into Gundam and stuff like that at the time as well. So Pat Labor still being this like unknown property was just also like a big eyebrow raise from me because I was like, oh, surely you must know.
It was so foreign to me that I was calling it Pat Labor for a while.
Yeah,
because I'm like, well,
Pat Labor.
What is this weird word? I wanted to put down a Czech one, but we'd seen a lot of them before. But then I remembered, How to Drown Dr. Mracek, the Lawyer.
Oh, yes.
That was a really good one that we did last year. Memories of Matsuko, obviously. That's still one of the best, I reckon.
Oh, yeah.
And two more, Late Spring. We had that earlier this year.
I'm glad that you
really
put
beautiful.
that there.
And the last one that I had for the mutuals was Yojimbo.
Oh, Yojimbo. Yes. Two films from two titans of Japan at the end there.
A lot of Japanese films at the end of this list.
Of course.
It occurred to me the other day that I've recommended a lot of Japanese films this past year.
I think, going forward...
Same with you, but yeah.
Of course. Going forward, I would still love to discover more, like, European films from, like, Denmark and things like that, like other European countries and the main big hitters. Like, I still think, like, we've barely done any French movies considering, like, like when you think of a podcast. And even then, there's so many, we've said we would love to do more Polish films. Where do we go? And things like that. But what else is on your list here for ones that you have discovered?
Yes. Ones that you've probably already seen, or maybe you didn't care for as much. Mostly ones that you've already seen. And when you get to the Pictures Powwow stuff, a lot of them are your recommendations. So starting off, we have Bubble Boy.
Oh, yeah, you love Bubble Boy.
Guess Who?
Oh,
Had you seen Guess Who?
No, I had seen the trailers for Guess Who, but I don't think I'd seen Guess Who.
Oh, that should have been in the first list then.
We still quote some of that. We still always reference.
Did Guess Who's Coming to Dinner?
Percy Jones.
Yeah. I accidentally had Thunderpants in the other list. That should have been in this one. Nothing But Trouble.
Oh.
And that's another one we did with the Contrarians the second time.
What a film. Why don't they let Dan make movies?
Pootie Tang.
Pootie Tang.
I still look at the thumbnail that I picked for our YouTube upload. I had to have one with subtitles because we needed the dialogue in it. Confessions of a Shopaholic was a nice surprise for me.
That's how I felt when I first saw it. When
Yeah.
I saw it as a young man, teen or whatever, it was a pleasant surprise. I was like, hey, this is like really refreshing. It's funny, it's sharp, but also like it's really getting into the subject matter of like shopaholic stuff is real.
Yeah, like what you were talking before about discovering, Down with Love being great. That was Confessions of a Shopaholic is one that I'd heard of growing up, and I always just dismissed like, I think I literally say this in our episode on that. It's like, chick flick, I don't know much about it. And then when we finally watched it for Unappreciated Masterpieces, it genuinely blew me away. Like, wow, that was actually...
It was Isla Fisher's starring vehicle, and she didn't launch off as a leading actress, but she has the screen presence for it. She's gone into more supporting crazy roles, but she was great in that movie.
Yeah, it's just totally solid, and there's some really good performances in it too.
Yeah, some wonderful character actors show up. I'm forgetting her name, but the one who plays like Ivana Humpalot in Austin Powers, she was like in that movie, and it's just a whole bunch of crazy people in there. John Goodman.
Yes, that's...
When we discovered recently, it's like John Goodman's appeared in so many movies, and I was like, oh yeah, and he was in this, and you're like, oh yeah, and he was in Confessions of a Shopaholic as the dad,
and
right? And then I was like, oh.
And his wife in that film was also in the
Julie
storytelling.
Haggerty.
Yeah.
Yep, as the wife, yep.
Grease 2?
Grease 2.
That's another one where it's like, oh, I loved Grease growing up. I'd always heard that Grease 2 is, one of the many like shitty sequels that didn't need to happen. And then we watched it on the podcast. I'm like, that was actually really kind of funny.
I still listen to it.
And the soundtrack's really great too.
I still listen to it.
Let's
bowl, let's rock and roll, I quote.
Yeah. Speaking of musicals, this is one that when you recommend, you're like, you might not be into it, Bartek Tommy.
Oh, wow. I didn't expect Tommy to be here.
I really liked Tommy, yeah.
You loved Oliver Reed in it.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. The Brady Bunch movie, that was one that you talked about a lot before we done the episode. And I don't think you ever really told me the premise of it. Mm-hmm. So when I watched the film and I actually saw it, I'm like, oh my God, I totally get this.
I love Michael McKean as the villainous neighbor because he's just a normal man stuck in this fake sitcom world. That's such a great idea. Like, that's just one of the 10 million great ideas in that movie.
I think if I'm, Christmas times, I usually like to show my family a film. I think that might be the next one, Brady Bunch film.
Gary Cole. He's so good.
So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Oh, wow.
I just remember when I watched it, I'm like, man, if I watched this when I was younger, this could have been like a staple for me because I just love Mike Myers.
Oh, yeah. It's what I think. It's like when I think of like when Fat Bastard showed up, like, hey, you can't do that again. You can't do the Scottish, over the top Scottish stuff. And then Shrek and all of this, like, oh my God, Mike Myers just loves Scottish stuff. I knew that from How I Married an Axe Murderer because I think I watched that when I was so young, like maybe even before Shrek. I watched it really young, that movie, and it was just one of those things that swirled around because I was Mike Myers pilled from a young age.
Now we're into Pictures Powwow. The first one that I had down was The Handmaiden. My first Korean film, in fact, I just remembered.
Wow. Well, and that's a film like with so many, like with Confessions and so many, where it's a joy to discover what it's doing. Like foreign cinema, but a lot of Asian cinema, it's like they're almost like a game to play. Like look at what they're doing. They're playing with you, and then you go, oh
yeah. And believe me, there is another Korean film in this list.
Oh, good.
Next one I had was Harvey.
This
is a classic film that I just never saw before.
Jimmy Stewart,
really great. You didn't like this one, Mulholland Drive.
My infamous. I regret that I don't like Mulholland Drive.
No, it's you said it in the episode. Like, you love David Lynch, but there's always one thing you don't like in a filmography, and unfortunately, this one was one for you. Mm-hmm. No, I'm a sucker for dream stuff, so it really worked for me. This one loved in a way. The Nightingale.
Love's a strong word, isn't it?
That was the running joke of the episode. Like, I like this in an appreciative manner. It's a very heavy film.
Oh, it's probably one of the heaviest we've covered.
Yeah, but it's damn good.
And it has an example of something that I love, which is actor in their freak era, which is handsome leading man type, stretching their acting range and playing an absolute disgusting, filthy menace. Dan Stevens is in The Guest is my peak example, but Sam Claflin as the main prick in The Nightingale. If you've seen Sam Claflin in any other thing, including a movie we did on this podcast called Love, Wedding, Repeat.
Literally the following episode, I think.
It is such a devastatingly stark contrast of man trying to do like the romantic leading thing and freak era. I love that. I love when actors go to their freak era.
I think we referenced this movie literally the last episode that we recorded, Batman the movie.
Oh, I love Batman.
It was a fun one, yeah. Our friend Will recommended this one and talked about it being one of his favorite, Tremors.
Oh yeah, Tremors is iconic.
Just totally solid, yeah.
That's one of those ones too where it's like not only is it fun, but it's well written, but it's well made. Like all of the practical effects, but also just like the shot composition, the way that they blend miniatures with this, and it's just
it doesn't sound like something I'd be into, but it was just so masterfully made.
And we love films also about like ensembles. Like when you mentioned Bubble Boy, that's like a great, like, what does Bartek like about movies? It's like, here's the kooky ensemble of characters. Some we meet along the way.
Yes.
And in Tremors, it's like, we have a town. And by the end of the movie, all of them are working together. And you just love to see that too.
Yeah. This one somehow I didn't put on this list until like the very end. Like, oh, why didn't I put this in? It was great. Enemy Mine.
I still get emotional about Enemy Mine. I just love those two performances, and it's a movie where it is just those two performances, and that idea has been, done to death, like before and afterwards. Science fiction loves that idea of like, two enemies forced together. But to me, Enemy Mine is the king of it. Like, you just come back to, even though the ending's a bit crappy because they literally I always joke about like how, and it's true, this is true, how they had to put in a literal mine because the producers didn't understand the title. They're like, where's the mine? And so you get a
mine ran by bad guys, aka enemies.
But even then, even with studio interference, that's a movie where the heart of it is still there. Even though it had to get reshot, there's all of this behind the scenes troubles, the heart of it still beats.
Yeah, the good stuff in it is great, and I was kicking myself that I didn't put it in the list initially. The first Highlander film, even though we didn't do an episode on it.
You son of a bitch.
I really liked it.
Of course you did. I never got to see it.
Yeah, you should see it. It's really good. It's funny.
Maybe we'll recommend it one day.
Yeah. I foreshadowed this one, Burning.
That was one where I think that's, one of my favorite discussions we've had on the pod, because the look on your face when I started to peel back the stuff about like Stephen Yeun's character, Ben, is like, is he actually what the film says he is? Or could it be this? And just the look on your face of like, I didn't even consider that. Like, what? And then talking about it more and more and more, it's like, holy crap, this movie's got a lot of things to just keep peeling away at it. Like, that's a film I've only seen twice, and it's like, I can't wait for the third watch, where now I'll watch it with this perspective going in.
Yeah, I've only seen it the one time, and I think you've mentioned multiple times the many, many times that I reference it in relation to films that we cover on the podcast, because it is just that great. Speaking of great films, this one's a pretty one, The Love Witch.
Why? Why is that there for you? Just because it's visually very good?
It's visually very good. It's really well made. It's funny. It's just very stylish.
I think it's also one of the great spooky month movies. Just like, oh, that's a great spooky. I didn't say it, but like one of my favorite spooky ones that I discovered because of you was Starry Eyes. I knew of it, but I didn't see it before. And I'm like, I love that movie. That was a great movie, Starry Eyes. And it's like, that'd be a good spooky month pick.
Yeah, good for Spooky Month. Unfortunately, I wasn't really into it that much. Heart and Souls.
I mentioned Tom Sizemore earlier, and I think I can't remember if it was before the pod, but I was like, oh, Tom Sizemore was in Twin Peaks: The Return and Heart and Souls, and he was great in both.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it too much recently, but a couple of weeks ago, just the Walk Like a Man, Talk Like a Man scene just came into my head. I'm like, oh my God, I haven't thought about that film in a few years.
I was thinking the other day about Rachel and I were out with some people and they had a kid, and I was thinking about the little lullaby that the mother character made up of like her little hugabug, and it was like the thing that tipped off the adult version of that kid that the situation was real. And I was getting I was almost getting teary-eyed about it again. I'm like, oh man. And Charles Grodin in that movie, as in his whole character, like, Robert Downey Jr. needs to be making movies like that again.
Oh, very
just
beautiful
fun,
film.
sweet, emotionally devastating films.
Yeah.
Please.
So just like Enemy Mine, this is also one that I somehow missed putting on the first run through. Moon.
Oh.
Totally solid film. Really good.
Mm-hmm. Sam Rockwell just carrying the movie on his shoulders, and Kevin Spacey's there too.
Yeah.
Also, Matt Berry randomly as like one of the people on the monitor. Remember that?
Yes, corrupt guy.
And it was like, he sounds like our teacher Liam. I'm like, yeah, well, about that.
Here's a fun one. They Call Me Trinity.
Oh, yes. The nice spaghetti western, comedy spaghetti western too.
I think about the bean scene, the bean eating.
Yeah, the very opening. Yep.
Cube. I really loved Cube.
Mm-hmm. Canadian horror at its best.
Yep. Tears of the Black Tiger. That was a really funny one. I was listening to your history with it earlier today, and it's like, oh, right, it's related to when we were looking up Soviet westerns and stuff like that. Yeah, really fun film, really stylish. I think about the villain's performance a lot.
His little mustache.
Mm-hmm. One of the funniest films we ever covered, A Town Called Panic.
Oh, yeah. Animated films became a big deal for us. At the moment, we've been doing a lot of like, this is the year of blank. And I don't think we ever we never did an animated movie a year. I think we just kind of did a lot I just personally was like, I wanted to watch a lot of animated movies.
Yeah, and it bled into our real life when we started watching animated again. I even mentioned The Ghost in the Shell earlier.
And A Town Called Panic was like one of those earlier in the year. I can't remember if it was like my first pick of that year or when it was.
No, Tears of Black Tiger was.
Yeah, and then A Town Called Panic later. But like, yeah, I just remember watching like the little shorts of that. It's like, they made a movie.
Yeah, it was so fun. My friend Malloy, I really want him to see it at some point. You mentioned this one earlier, Breaker Morant. I love me a good trial film, and that was a great one.
Brian Brown. Yep. I literally today went on a bus and there was a big poster of a Brian Brown movie, and I was just like, we had him in Gods of Egypt and Breaker Morant.
Was he also in Two Hands?
Oh yeah, he was the villain in Two Hands.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking about the contrast of Breaker Morant, where he's a supporting character and he's great, and Gods of Egypt. Both Australian films too. Like all these Australian films, but boy, were they drastically different feeling.
I forgot to put Gods of Egypt on this.
Yeah, you should have put that on the list as a favourite.
I did put another Australian film on the list, The Castle.
Oh, I forgot that you hadn't seen that before.
Yeah, it was my first time and I loved it.
It's the vibe of the thing that matters.
Yep. Another spooky month one, Martin.
Oh, yes. George Romero's vampire, in quotations, vampire film. Yeah, I think of that one. I can't remember if I had seen it before. I was like aware of it, but I was like, we got to do this because it's like we've done a George Romero zombie one. We haven't done any other ones, and he's the zombie guy, but he did a vampire movie.
Yep. I got about 5 more. We'll get through them quickly. Yep. So Shane, that's a classic. I hadn't seen it before, but I really loved it. Another classic. Wasn't spooky month, but we covered it early in the year. Last year, The Omen. That's another one where it's like, oh my god, that's popular for a reason.
Of course it is.
Yep. Cabaret,
and that's just a masterpiece.
Another masterpiece, yeah.
And we got a real moment of being able to discuss the acting career of Michael York, because we had him as Basil Exposition, and you love him as Basil Exposition. You do the perfect impression.
It is shit, Austin.
And we got to talk about him in a more dramatic sense, and like a young Michael York, and he's very good in that movie. But Liza Minnelli, everyone's great, but it's just one of those where that is one of the best films we've covered in terms of like getting into the discussion of like what is fascism and how it encroaches upon you and just takes root and just consumes.
Yeah, really powerful. And like I mentioned in that episode, like I was expecting a film like Chicago, and it was something much, much more. 2 more. Second last one, Marriage Story. It's one that I recommended, but I hadn't seen before.
You were curious to see it.
And yeah, really great performances. Really loved it. And the final one, this is the only one from this year that I've got in this second list, Stranger Than Fiction.
The Will Ferrell dramedy. I love that film, and Emma Thompson is wonderful, but Queen Latifah, another great recurring face for our podcast, and giving her most dramatic performance, one of her most dramatic performances we've seen from her in that film, much more stripped back, much more reserved. But we're talking about all these nice things, all these things we liked. We've covered some bad things over the years, some things that we didn't like. And with Unappreciated Masterpieces, it's difficult because we love them all, of course.
Yeah.
It's Rock the Casbah.
Yeah, probably at the bottom, yeah.
Definitely.
Still a great film.
Yeah.
Great film, but
It's no
probably
Ishtar.
at the bottom, yeah.
It's no Ishtar. Mystery Box, on the other hand, now that's difficult because
we talked about it a
how
little bit.
much is it that they're boring and how much is it that they're morally reprehensible? Because I found some of the ones in the Mystery Box to be evil. Like, that's an evil film. Meteor Apocalypse was very enjoyable to talk about and watch, but when you think about it, it was quite a vindictive film where it was pretending and dressing itself up as one of those Christian faith-based films, but it actually was very, like, nihilistic and atheistic, and it felt like it loathed that stuff. And it's not like I'm saying, like, boo-hoo, poor Christians, but it was just... it pretended to be one thing and slowly revealed itself to be the other. And I don't like it when it's in that way, where it's this villainous act on its part. Like, it was a fun movie to, like, chat about and whatever, but, like, when we started talking about it, though, and when we started getting into it, it was like, this is... you know, when you actually take it on its face value, it is reprehensible what it's doing. But for my money, you know... it's hard not to say, like, the boring ones are the ones that are the weakest for me, because it's like, I can still talk about how much Urotsuki Doji pisses me off. I can still talk about Tender Love and Care.
Tender Loving.
I knew I was going to mess it up. But to this day, I still quote bits of that, and I even quote the scenes that weren't in the movie. What the bloody hell is going on here? John Hurt, but whatever. To me, this is an oddball pick, but I chose... Distant Cousins, I think it's called.
Yeah, that's what it's called. I
chose that as, like, the worst one for the Mystery Box because it's like, what can you say about Distant Cousins? It's nothing. It's a nothing movie. It is just the most boilerplate generic thriller type. And there's so many others I could have chosen from in that way, but, like, there was always, like, a thing that I can say to you to this day, oh, we had Jump Scare Crab in this movie, or a character that we joked that couldn't pop their ears, and that's why they went crazy, so on and so forth. Mario appeared, like, all of this. But Distant Cousins was just... it was competent. Like, that's its biggest praise, was, like, it was visual. Like, it wasn't so incompetent that you couldn't follow. Like, you could follow it. But what do I say to you about it other than we watched it? Bored Silly, I think I remember it because the title and that we talk about it. Like, we do talk about it.
We saw the trailer, like,
early on. But, like, to me, Distant Cousins just kind of, like, I went through the list and went, oh, yeah, that. And I just had to acknowledge, like, that immediate, like, oh, yeah, that reaction to
my
it.
only reaction was, like, I don't really remember too much. It wasn't really so much a negative thing.
And that's why I put it here. Because Mystery Box was like, even the ones that what do I want? Ones that piss me off or ones that bore me? I'd rather ones piss me off to be the ones that stay than the ones that bore me. And Distant Cousins is one where it's just like, here we are talking about what could have been static.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't remember it enough to really say that I could call it the worst.
Yeah.
And I know that could be the most valid thing to have it be the most forgettable.
And that's why I'm coming at it from my way of doing it, and you're going to have a different way of how you're looking at what worst is or what this falls into. And with Pictures Powwow, boy, it's hard to say because it's like, we cover so many big movies and small movies, and, like, what do we do? And it's like, is recency bias in my eyes because I just watched Uncharted, which just reminded me, like, of how soulless the industry can be.
I was wondering if that would be your one.
I don't want to say it's Uncharted, but I look through them all, and I'm just like, boy, did that just make me depressed. It just made me so depressed about, like, life. Venom did too. Venom's the same director, so I don't know if this director has his, like, pulse, like, finger on the pulse of, like, doom.
Would you rather watch Glass again?
Glass at least has something to talk about. Uncharted is just a film where it's just like, it's not like it is just corporate greed. Uncharted, like Glass is like an insane director who doesn't understand his own work coming back and ruining it. But that being said, it did ruin Unbreakable, which was one of my favorite films.
Yep.
A perfect film. And he came along and just completely made everything bad. So Glass should be in there, but Uncharted's recency bias. We covered some of these big Terminal Velocity. I'm putting that in there too. I did not like Terminal Velocity. I did not care for that movie at all. And I listened back to a bit of it because I remember you all enjoyed it. And you all, like, I guess mainly.
I remember Alex really liking it.
Of course, he recommended it. And it you could hear me sighing.
So I did a similar shotgun thing, and for the Pictures Powwow ones, I just wrote down a couple that I'm like, oh, maybe something between these. The few that I wrote down, we've mentioned half of them already. So I got Lady in the Water, Highlander 2, Jack and Jill, Glass, Venom, Harley Davidson, and the Marlboro Man.
Oh, Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. Oh boy, how could we forget about that one?
Honestly, I'm struggling. I think I know I mentioned before about like the forgettable thing, you know, maybe not be my thing for Mystery Box, but I think it might be for this one.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have to give it to Highlander 2. And I feel kind of, you know...
Don't feel bad.
I feel
Highlander 2.
No, not bad. I feel kind of normie for that because it's like heralded as, you know, one of the worst films ever made.
And you love the first one.
And the first one was really good. I did watch it beforehand. But I think, you know, hearing like, oh, it's one of the worst films ever made, that gives you an expectation of like, oh, but like so bad it's good elements, right? But it wasn't that.
John McGinley's the only saving grace of that movie, and he gives us much more. And are we done yet? So...
Yeah, I might have to give it to, Highlander 2.
Okay.
For Mystery Box, I wrote down a couple as well. And you mentioned most of them, actually. There's one that you didn't mention. Two, actually. So the ones that I wrote down were Meteor Apocalypse, Deep Rescue, Urotsuki Doji 2, The Fourth Tenor.
Oh, that one was so sad.
That was one of the ones I'm surprised you didn't mention that one because the sad element really was the thing.
You
for
could
that
just
one.
see Rodney Dangerfield like so close to the end of his life.
I think I remember in that episode when you reveal that film's from like 2002 or something. It's like, are you kidding me?
It was post 9/11.
Yeah. Alien Intruder and Tender Loving Care.
Wow.
Alien Intruder is one that we bring up a lot because of how ugly it looks.
And it had a bunch of B5 actors in it, and they were all in B5 at the time, which made it insane. It was like, what? Zach Allen, Kanicki, Tracy Scoggins, and this was before you had seen Babylon 5, so I was just like, trust me, these are like good actors. And you're like, yeah, no, it's Kanicki. It's like, no! Please, don't do this.
He was in Dickie Roberts.
He was in Dickie Roberts. No, that's one of the biggest mysteries. Dickie Roberts had him as a child star. He was not a child star. He was an adult when he played Kanicki.
No, but
that's
he
not
was a
how
model,
it works.
apparently.
No, that's not how it works.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably going to toss it up between Alien Intruder and The Fourth Tenor because of how one very ugly and one just very sad.
Anything from Unappreciated Masterpieces you want to just reference?
Oh, I mean, I agreed with you about, what's it?
Rock the Casbah?
Rock the Casbah. Probably at the bottom, even though it's still great. It's like Ishtar.
I think one of our big debates in terms of, like, good movie or not, and even you've kind of softened on this, was the Red Riding Hood film.
Yeah, that was one that I'd seen prior, and, you know, I was a young teenager. And
you were so displeased when I said, we're doing this, we're going to bring this one on. You were like,
Yeah.
But you know what that gave us? Soft Hey Ryan.
Soft Hey Ryan, yeah.
Where I now got the nickname Soft Hey Ryan because of just some convoluted series of circumstances where I said hey softly, but also we'll talk about how there was hay, physical hay, and it's soft, and it's just...
in general, like, I've enjoyed going around to things that I've seen before that I didn't like. Like, we did it with that one. It's like, hey, actually, Unappreciated Masterpiece, not bad. One of my first recommendations, I think, for Pictures Powwow was Savages. So I didn't like that the first time, and I think I was just exaggeratedly not
Yeah, I
liking
remember
it.
you always brought it up as like, this is a movie I saw and it wasn't good.
Yeah, and it just seemed like, young Bartek, you probably took that a bit too far.
There are films too where, it is that thing of you look at it and go, this is not a film for me. And then we do it through the podcast experience and it becomes a film for you. From Paris with Love, for me, was one where it's like, this doesn't look like not my type of thing. Did it on the podcast. Fuck yeah. Love that. I love bold Travolta.
I remember that being good. That was the first one we recorded with the 2 mics.
Yeah. And it was just, I love bold Travolta.
3 mics,
and,
actually.
that was a special one. Now, we have here some standout moments of the pod. And, what do we... Oh, no, so our favorite episodes and standout moments. Look, I have one favorite episode. I know it's very easy to, list a whole bunch. To me, and I said it when we did it, and I know that it may be sad to say that nothing's topped it, but Annie. 2014's Annie, I think, is my favorite episode of the podcast we ever did. Our guest, Madison, she was great, and we've only had her on a couple of times. I would love to have her on again, but that episode, that movie, Cameron Diaz, the reviews, everything about that discussion. I was sick. It was raining. It had all of these things that seemed like it would go against it, but I listened to that. I've listened to that more than once, that episode, because I enjoy that episode. I just like us getting to talk about a musical in that format as well. We only got that a handful of times, but it was still something, and it was like a newer movie, relatively speaking, and we didn't know really that it would be the end of Cameron Diaz's acting career for a solid while, but it was. And so it's become even more of this precious thing of like, hey, that was her last thing. But I love the film. I love Jamie Foxx revealing that he's wearing a hairpiece in that movie when he has hair that's like paint on anyway. So what does that mean? The musical numbers are absolutely batty.
We had some good jokes in that one too.
And this is true. This is me being sincere here. In amongst all of it, you actually had a truly sublime, phenomenal central performance from Quvenzhané Wallis as the titular Annie. She was great. Like, for a child performance, she's like one of the top ones that we've had. Like, I think back on her being like,
sure.
Who are these great child performers that we've had? And she is right there, and she gave it her all. And the movie isn't perfect, but if the movie met her level, then it could have been a classic. But where it is, it's an unappreciated masterpiece. Rose Byrne is there too. Like, she's there. She was in Two Hands. But in Annie, she was there as well. I loved her musical number with Annie, showing her like the
I think I'm gonna like it here. Yes.
I've listened to that one a few times.
I don't think I've listened to it since
back
then.
Buddy.
Yeah, it just came to my head.
I know. There's so many to go through, but I even with the Mystery Box and Pictures Powwow, Annie to me is like what. Even with my other podcast, I don't think I've had more fun than Annie. All these guest stuff we've done, the Annie one, I just remember walking in and being like, oh no, this is gonna be rough. I'm sick. Although Gulliver's Travels is also a special one to my heart because I came in having had no sleep, and you and Mark were antagonizing the fuck out of me.
You need to do more episodes where you're just not feeling the best.
Yeah, that's it. I need to be down like 40%.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
So I did another smaller shotgun approach
of
of thing with a couple of episodes. It's really hard not to give just an unappreciated masterpiece one because of, the energy that we bring there. If I had to pick an overall favorite, it might be between one of these first 3. One of them is Flipper, which is a really classic one that we did with our friend Will, who Will has said that of the ones that he's done about a dozen. That's his favorite one. Just a lot of really fun moments there. That was one of the first moments we had where like on the same page with like, oh, we know what we're bringing up, the evidence and Isaac Hayes.
And it had an external mystery because I have it in a DVD double pack with Big Fat
with Big
Liar.
Fat Liar. And there's
and
like
it makes
no correlation.
connection. They're not from the same studio. They don't have any actors, producers, no behind the scenes people. They're not from the same decade. They're not the same type of child film. Why are these in a double pack?
Exactly. In our Q&A, I said that this was my favorite episode and probably is of the ones that I've actually listened to from Unappreciated Masterpieces. Entrapment.
Mm-hmm.
Just so many great moments in that one with us and Sam Langsford. I remember there was a whole bit about the Singapore airport, and we kept talking about feminism. So you guys thought I was talking about like the feminist airport, and so we just kept building a bunch of things off that.
There was talk about spoons, licking spoons.
Yeah,
that was the thing.
It was like a fork thing because what's his
fork.
name? Ving Rhames like was eating with a fork, and then he like stopped someone Sean Connery from leaving by putting his fork on his like finger. And then he kept going back to eating. So it's like, is he trying to taste this?
And Ving Rhames is dressed like the coolest motherfucker you've ever seen in your life.
And during all the laser scenes, just having the audio of Sean Connery going.
Oh, man. By the way, I think one of my proudest things that's ever happened on the pod, this was early editing, when I edited together all of the behind-the-scenes stuff of Sorority Boys.
That classic.
And then I played it for us in the episode for the real-time reaction.
We should have had a segment of this episode dedicated to the Nuggets.
The Nuggets.
I guess we did talk a little bit about, just trying to be a guy.
Hugh laughed, man. Every time Hugh Jackman laughed in the film, Deception.
The last mystery box.
Which is like 2 minutes worth of laughter. It's insane.
Yep. I mentioned this one already this episode, 101 Dalmatians. I just think, much like what you were saying with Annie, just hit after hit of great riff. I really need to listen to that one. I just remember having such a great time recording that one. I also talked about this one, Pictures Powwow, before Pictures Powwow, Vampire's Kiss. I remember even Will was like, oh man, that was a really great discussion we had.
Because we weren't trying, because that film has a reputation, it has a lifespan of being like, it's so funny, bad, but it's not, again, like we mentioned earlier, once you get on its level, it really has a lot of rewarding things to think about. It has a lot of things to say. It does have some flaws, of course, but and Nicolas Cage, his performance is electric once you get past the humor, the blank-faced humor of he's
memes.
saying funny things funnily. It's like he's really going for it, and even to this day he still says it's one of his favorites. Like in any interview when he gets the chance to get Vampire's Kiss mentioned, you see him light up.
Oh, right on. Excellent.
Yeah, right on.
Got down most of the mystery box. We've talked about why we love the mystery box, so don't need to go into that. From the Pictures Powwow ones, just vaguely remembering some conversations we had. The Nightingale, just a really good discussion about like a dark film. I've got a lot of ones that we had this guest on for, but the first one that I have is Juno, which we did with your wife Rachel. I remember just having a really good discussion with the three of us. It was fun.
And the look on your face when we started talking about the Rainn Wilson scene and just you going on about that was real. Yeah. That was so much, just in the way he talked. And I was just like, that's the way this writer writes.
A lot of the ones that I have for Pictures Powwow either have guests or the films are just, that kind of film. Another one because of, guest experiences and, it's someone we've talked about already. Freddy Got Fingered.
What a film.
Where we, some of us turned around our opinions on it and we had the whole reveal about how we figured Reese loved the film, but he actually
had never seen it fully.
He had never seen it fully, and
he roasted me years before for not fully watching the movie.
Way back in Meet Dave.
And then he revealed he didn't watch it. What a liar! Reese, you better keep running.
Yeah. Are we done yet?
Mm-hmm.
That one kind of felt like an Unappreciated Masterpieces outside of Unappreciated Masterpieces.
And a
fever dream kind of thing.
I know, we haven't talked about Televisual Event that much, but I will say that the episode we did on Double the Fist, I think is not just a good episode, but I almost call it like a resource, because that one feels like an academic thing as well. Like we are talking about it from that modern perspective, but also going through the history of that show, how it came to be, why it's where it is. And it's just like, no one else is talking about Double the Fist, and to me, it's just I just wanted to reference that because I thought about just because I just made the reference to the line, but your love of Steve Fox in that show, and just him being like, if you're an ancient demigod and you're watching this, you better keep running, you better keep driving.
Ryan, I didn't get up to that part of the list yet.
Oh no, because you went to Pictures Powwow, I thought you skipped Televisual Event.
No, I've got two of those on here.
Okay.
I
misjudged.
I guess we'll go there. One of them is Double the Fist. I remember just being, a great episode where we got to, talk about how much we loved the first season and then just got to go real hard on the second season. I
don't understand that season still.
I distinctly remember. I talk about it in the episode itself, and I was not joking. Like when you started talking about the second season, I was like, guys, there's a chill in the room when Ryan just started talking sincerely about his disgust for this season. The other one was Blackadder, just because it was a lot of fun. Something that we're both really familiar with. That was the one where it was something that we were both familiar with and got to, just go over the whole thing.
I remember that was also a nice connective moment because a while before we did Drop Dead Fred.
Mm-hmm.
And the guest and I really loved Rick Mayall, and we had a connection with Rick Mayall, and we really talked about Rick Mayall in the lead, and you felt a bit out of the loop with that. But it was also he's the lead of this film, so we have to talk about him. And then when we did Blackadder, it's Rick Mayall is a recurring figure in Blackadder, and so we got to have our Rick Mayall discussion where we were finally here we go, we're Rick Mayalling it up now. But
Mad Gerald, Lord Flashheart.
Yeah, and and Robin Hood.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought back because that I still love the Drop Dead Fred episode, but I remember you were a bit you were a bit on the outside because we were so Rick Mayall focused. Yeah, all right. And you didn't really have that with him, and I was like, oh, he was Lord Flashheart, and you're like, oh yeah, and I was like, oh, and because he had. He's no longer with us, and Drop Dead Fred's his big Hollywood movie. And then when we did the Blackadder stuff, it's okay, now we can really get into talking about Rick Mayall and all those wonderful British actors like Stephen Fry, who was in, of course, Thunderpants.
Yeah, Spice World too.
And Spice World.
But both as courtroom people.
Yeah. I joked that he was the same character.
Yeah. This one for the film itself, more so than the discussion, but I think the discussion was fun. Tommy Tricker and the Stamp Traveler.
Yeah, I love those type of movies where it's about an obsessive culture.
Yep. The mystery box outside of the mystery box for that one. This one because of the bit where I talked about some of the paratextual elements, the Beast of War. Especially going into the backstory and the articles. I've re-listened to that segment quite a bit. Mentioned this film already, Breaker Morant.
Yeah.
Love my courtroom stuff.
It's an interesting real life story and conundrum. That's still a whole issue that's still debated about of how do we feel about that?
Yeah, and I remember we had a good discussion with the guests we had on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Another Rachel one, Enough Said, also said I love the film. Another guest one, The Castle. We had the chats, so got not only my first impression of it, watching it, but also some American ones, and we had some great little riffs about fat photocopiers. That was really fun.
Photocopy culture.
Yep, and the only one I have left here that I haven't mentioned, and it's another one that we had guests on, Martin. Yeah. We had a little bit of fun there. We talked about Coneheads a bit. Yeah.
There's so many, as we've gone through here, we've mentioned so many great little moments that came from episodes or adjacent, and there's so many standout things. And I don't know how many more, but I can go through that we already haven't said. We've actually done some that we've said, but I have one in particular, and it's from the Annie episode. And I think it's just a genuinely great, not bit, but just pitch that we did, which was in that film. There's a character played by Bobby Cannavale. Do you know where I'm going with this? And he is a character that does not get a musical number. And nor does he get to participate in a musical number. And I joked, and then we all joined in, that he lives in a world where he doesn't know that musical shenanigans are happening, and he always walks in after they've just done their big number.
Yeah.
And it's what does he feel about this?
That's one of the classic bits.
And I would love that movie. I would love that. I'd get him to be the guy. But it was just one of those observations we made. That was it
didn't happen often, but when it did, it was a lot of fun.
Because sometimes we'd make those observations where we both saw it, or a random off-the-cuff thing. Recently, we did Uncharted, as mentioned, and I made an observation that just made you crack up laughing, just hysterically laugh. Where I said in Uncharted, this is a film of 3 people doing silly voices and Antonio Banderas doing his. And you just laughed a lot at that because it's an absurd observation, but it's true. Or Baby's Day Out, this is a universe where people don't look down. And it's just like, once you say that, you're like, you can't unsee that that's the reality that they live in. And with Annie, it was just a thing of just everyone's getting a musical number except for him. And he's a prominent character and a prominent actor. And he can dance and he can sing. Why isn't he getting one? And we just all went in on he lives in a world where he doesn't know it's a musical. And then we watched Stranger Than Fiction. And it was like, if they presented it in that kind of way, where like he's the guy that's living in a story and he's figured it out, blah, 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 with that kind of visual style. I'd love to watch that movie of Bobby Cannavale figuring out that he lives in a musical. That would be the dream pitch. And I still think about it. I still get excited about it. And to me, like, that is our podcast in a nutshell as well. Just like, that's one of my standout moments, as well as so many others we discussed, like evidence. Isaac Hayes requiring evidence. It's like, those kids in Flipper gave him so much evidence. It's ludicrous.
But it was science. He doesn't want science. He wants evidence.
He wants evidence.
Another one would be Baby's Day Out. It's a film where the adults don't look down.
Yeah. As I said, they don't look down in Baby's Day Out. What about you? What was some standout moments over the years here, over our many a podcasts? Anything that we haven't said here yet that you just want to flag up for the sake?
There's a lot of things that we reference a lot. Like we mentioned before that in the earlier years we did a lot more arguments. There's a lot of ones that we reference a lot. You were talking about how we should get into some of our like Harry Potter discussions over the years. I mentioned earlier that there was a argument about, cat dropping and the back and forth that led to. And The Man had some that it's like, I'm surprised we didn't remember those ones.
What were we arguing about in The Man?
Oh, there was a lot. It was a very semantics based thing. We talked about like colloquialisms around the word galah, the meaning of the man, and how you were talking about how you thought that it would be about like a male person, but it's actually about the police, and you walk in knowing that it's about the police, and they're like, well, but there's other meanings of the man too, and it started getting down to this rabbit hole of a bizarre thing that Mark said earlier. I'm like, I was disagreeing with you, Mark, but now you're actually right, and you were getting so exasperated.
It's a movie about a cop.
You know what? I'm putting The Man as one of my favorite episodes now. I don't barely remember much out of it, but apparently it's very funny.
Oh, man. I think for me, a standout moment from you is you reading the monologue from Cruel Intentions. You reading the Sarah Michelle Gellar monologue and just getting your voice running out of air, and you just keep going. It's so good.
I want to kill myself.
That and the one time where you got like really pissed off and you're just like, let me speak, and you just said it in this very like operatic way. And I just remember it was just like astonishing, but also it was just one of those things that was like, he said it in such an operatic way. It was just such a standout.
Was this
moment.
from Cruel Intentions?
No, this was another episode. I think it was like early on. It was like, I think it was Zathura. I swear it was Sam Noonan and I just kept talking, and you kept getting interrupted, and you just screamed at the top of your lungs, let me speak. And it was just such a dramatic moment that both Sam and I were like, we should let him speak, but also, what was that? Well, jeez. All right, jeez. That or Surf Ninjas. One of those, like, we had I swear it was Sam Noonan, if my memory serves me right, because Sam and I are talkers. And you were like, I can't get a word in edgewise.
I remember there was one time after some episode we did, it was back at the old place, so it would have been within the first 2 years. We were chatting, like, the four of us, you, myself, Sam, and Rachel, just at the front room. And it was mostly me just listening. It was, mostly the three of you talking. And then like the topic of Batman came up or something. And there was like one thing that I'm like, I have a take on this one little thing. And like opened my mouth to speak. And I had like the first sound come out. And then like Sam immediately just kept talking over it. Like never got to say my thing. And Rachel later on was like, you tried to say something that I noticed.
And what was it you were trying to tell us about Batman?
I don't remember. It had something to do with the Arkham games, because I played them. That's one of my reference points.
That's one of your references. Are there any you have here, but we're kind of circling around of like conversations we remember, but we just haven't brought up that much to ourselves or on our pod. Like we just have a lot of episodes and lots of tangents and lots of discoveries. Again, we're learning about each other and ourselves, and just a thing that you say about your family life is a normal thing. I'm like, wait, what? No, you can't just say your dad has like 15 toilets in his house and expect us not to want to know more about that.
I always find that one weird. I could have sworn I brought that up to I'll bring this up and then we'll talk about it.
It probably did, but then we kept inquiring about it, but then you kept like normalizing it and like, no. What do you mean? What does that mean? You can't just say this.
Like I always find it bizarre to think about, but obviously, yeah, I've been there, so I get the idea of it all.
Yeah. Is there anything like that from me for you?
I remember there was one story you told about, I think you've referenced this one though, so it's not quite right, but like you were talking about one of the fights you've been in was just you talking to a friend while some little kid was trying to, start a fight with you because you said something about his sister.
It wasn't me. It was another guy called Ryan, but he's like, I know a Ryan.
Yeah, and then
it's the school's vice captain, Ryan, obviously.
Yeah, and then as he went to like tackle you, like the science teacher came from out of nowhere.
Yeah,
and, like,
I heard from
him.
behind me this sound of air being cut through because the science teacher was running so fast and he crash tackled him into the gutter. I turned around and he just said, Ryan, have a good afternoon, keep going. And I was like, all right, thanks, Mr. Soul. And then I just walked off.
That was one of the fun. I remember pissing myself laughing when you told that.
I think a tale that I told on the pod, I'm pretty sure, was the one time I got bumped into by some Hasidic Jews.
Oh, I've listened to that. Yep.
And they saw me because I had long curly hair.
That's Keeping Up with the Steins, guys. Listen to that part of the episode.
I had long curly hair, and they saw me, and they're like, you Jewish? I'm like, no, I'm Polish. And
What's this? What's this?
And points at my curly hair, and it's like, what can I tell you? And then they walked off after all of that, and then you stopped, turned around, pointed at me, and just said, Polish? You could still be a Jew, and then left my life.
You could have been a Jew.
You could have been a Jew, and then left my life, and I've never seen him again. Oh, biggest shock of shocks was discovering that Gary Marshall is not Jewish. We watched Keeping Up with the Steins, and there's a behind the scenes where it's like, oh, by the way, I don't know why, but people think my dad's Jewish. It's like, what do you mean Gary Marshall's not Jewish? We had already watched Race to Witch Mountain, where we thought Gary Marshall was pretty Jewish in that, and then we watched a Jewish movie with him in it, and it's he's not Jewish. Oh my lord! So we're wrapping up here now. Well, we've got a few more things, but are there any movies that you think you would ever want to revisit again, or that you think we weren't done the justice from yourself when doing it on the pod, or maybe it's like, oh, I saw it now, I've seen it, and now I have a different take on it, or like something along those lines.
I did two lists, one for revisit, one for do again. The revisit's a massive,
of course,
shotgun one. For do again, the only ones that really came to my mind were ones that had the audio issues. So,
no, of course.
So I always kind of have in the back of my head like, oh man, like Mike, we lost. I remember it being a really good episode, and we only had like 24 minutes of it that worked. You didn't actually mention this one to me when it was uploaded, but Cop Out.
Oh yeah,
like a huge, like the last chunk of it was missing. It's like, oh, that's a shame. This one, to a minor extent, was only like 20 minutes, but like Three Ninjas, we lost a segment.
Oh yeah.
And I remember when I listened to it, like I called back to something that I said during that missing segment, and I was like, oh man,
yeah,
that line doesn't make sense. And this one didn't come to mind, but I'm like, oh god, yeah, the entire episode of Magic Kid, because my audio was just gone.
Yeah, just disappeared into the unknown.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking so much about like revisits that I like, oh man, I sucked in that episode. But yeah, I always did think that myself in the Your Highness episode, I remember when I listened to that one, like, man, I'm just not on in this one.
You weren't having it.
Yeah. I listed a bunch of ones that I did want to revisit, and some of them were for like nostalgia, some of them were for, like, oh, I think I didn't get and I need to give it another go. I won't read all of them because there's a lot, but one of the ones that I list I think all of the first 10 episodes that we did on Unappreciated Masterpieces, they have like the biggest nostalgia value to me of like, oh man, the early days. So that's, Big Fat Liar and Thunderpants we have watched again, so less so them.
Kangaroo Jack it is.
Kangaroo Jack is the one that I had seen before, so also not so much that
But you
one.
forgot Christopher Walken was in it recently.
Exactly.
So how could you not want to revisit it?
And I literally haven't seen it since 2015, so it's still up there. But all the rest of them, yeah, really, really want to see. Just Visiting, I remember, was a lot of fun.
We can finally watch the French original.
Yeah, and followed up with that. Bend It Like Beckham.
I saw that in the cinema a couple of years ago with double featuring Old Boy for some reason. It was what was playing.
Yeah, that's how it works. Surf Ninjas, I'll Be Home for Christmas, Meet Dave, Band Slam, and Dickie Roberts, Former Child Star.
I've seen Dickie Roberts so many times because it was one of those, I had it on DVD, but Band Slam. I want to see the original cut that I watched. Because there was
if you can find it
weird,
again.
fucked up cut that somebody put up there. It was like a fan, I don't know what it was. It was like watching a David Lynch movie. And I was like, but it made sense. And then it didn't make sense. I'm like, okay, this is wrong. Look, when it comes to revisits, whether for the pod or not, or just in my own time, there is a large array of them. Like so many on the Unappreciated Masterpieces, we haven't rewatched again because it's like we've watched them 2 to 3 times almost. Whether watching it the first time, then doing it on the pod, and maybe editing or going back for our own amusement. But it's like, yeah, it's a tough thing. But there are just so many in that list that it's difficult to narrow it down. I would love to rewatch just Big Mama's House because of the nostalgia of ending that era. And now that I know that the actor who played that character was in Babylon 5, and now I can rewatch it going, no, it's Raymond O'Connor. And now I can say, I know who that is. And that's one I would love to re-record just specifically for that. So I can chime in and be like, the actor that you're trying to remember who this is, guys, is this actor. But IMDb doesn't list him, but we figured it out. I just feel bad for the listeners who listen to that and they don't know that we did find out who that actor was, because it was a big thing of each one of us was I feel like we know him in some way, or there's something about him. And you look through his IMDb and there is a movie in amongst there that we've all kind of seen in some way. When it comes to redoing, I would love to go back to Confessions. I don't think I was as positive on that the first when we did the record. I think it's one where I really let the stew on it, really had to digest it more.
We were also doing it online.
And I just didn't give it, I don't think I gave it the dues it's deserving, and the way that it's become in my mind is a truly sublime film, and it's one I've recommended to other people, other podcasts. It's just it's an all-around great film. It's one of the few that I would actually say I would do a review of that. That would just be how do we feel about it after all of these years later. And in a weird way, I want to kind of, I don't know, redo, but at least revisit Main Hunar, because we've gone on such a big journey with the Indian movies, and I've always been so dismissive of Main Hunar, but then I'm just it's by the director who did Om Shanti Om.
Yeah, you've been really back and forth on that when you've said oh, I should revisit it, but also I don't want to.
Yeah, Main Hunar, but I have to say, I should give it a look at some point, whether we'd re-review it, or I think we should re-review it if I did revisit it. If I had to revisit it, I want to re-review it, because a part of the Bollywood movies has been my journey with Indian movies, because you've recommended ones you've seen.
Yeah, I've only recommended
and
ones
I've never recommended one that I've seen or that you're unaware of. So at the moment, it's Ryan's little side project of learning about Indian cinema.
Fun fact, I like to pick one Bollywood film a year, and I haven't done it yet this year.
Got time.
And I have one more foreign pick left this year, so what could it be?
What could it be?
Oh, and Main Hunar director.
Could it be ESP? Yeah.
In terms of ones that I would want to revisit to, give it the proper dues, whether it's because I feel like I didn't watch it properly, or because you liked it so much that I feel I want to, see what you see. I'll filter out all the nostalgia ones and I'll point them out. The Witches of Eastwick. I remember that's one that you really love. And I remember you even said during that episode that the 3 of us that were in that episode with you were, mostly playing for the comedy or like riffing on things, and you were trying to actually get analytical on some things, and you've referenced that film multiple times throughout the years.
George Miller.
Yeah, and like I haven't necessarily remembered a lot of things there, so I want to check that one out again.
And John Peters as the producer doing crazy shit behind the
scenes. Oh, if it's a John Peters,
he wanted aliens in it.
You know what? John Peters, the discovery and chat about him over the years has been a highlight for me. Even my friend Bartlett, who was on the Tekken episode, like talks about him because of what I brought up.
He just loves spiders.
Yeah. Other ones, these are from Pictures Powwow. Unbreakable. You said that was one of your favorite films, and when I watched it, I didn't think too much of it. So when I heard that you had these strong feelings, for like, oh man, I really want to actually like watch that a bit more seriously.
And after Glass, there's definitely it did something right.
Yeah. And similar to what we were talking about just then with Confessions, I think that might have been the first one that we recorded like over Zoom or whatever we used.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to give that one another fair shake. Children of Men. Mostly because, it seems like that's a really, really beloved film, and I maybe didn't like it.
You and I were
much.
Indifferent on it.
Yeah, maybe give it a second go just to see if, like, maybe I'll like it the second time, but, that one's a bit on the lower end. The Haunting, that's another one where, like, I fell asleep multiple times. I did not give that one a fair shake.
Yeah, there are some films where you're like, I fell asleep and had to come back to it. I'm like, it breaks my heart. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I feel, again, because I mentioned with Pictures Powwow, it's me, like, trying to, self-improve myself. So if I'm falling asleep, I'm not doing it right, and I feel bad about it. Speaking of that, the next one, The Black Coat's Daughter. Like, I just didn't like it, but
I were like having so many disagreements on it because I was trying to be nice because we do antagonize each other sometimes, and it is that thing of like I want to be nice, but in that movie it was like me being too nice of just being like, you were factually wrong. There was just things like you were wrong, but I was just being like, no, I think you may have and you were like so adamant you were right, and I was just like, no, and then I went back afterwards. I'm like, no, he was factually wrong on that, and it's like completely upended your critiques, and I'm like,
yeah, I don't like it, but I want to give it a proper go. Like, we kind of did the thing with the Neon Demon, where we did it again with the Contrarians. I'm like, okay, I can appreciate it a bit more now, at least, so I can make peace with that. Delicatessen, like you were defending me for that one to me, where it's like, oh look, I feel like I didn't do it well, and like you seemed sick during that episode, you seemed out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought you would love that film. I was
that's
like,
exactly
and we've done films since then that it's like that's like Delicatessen, and you're like, yeah,
yeah. I need to watch it healthy, I guess. Yeah, those would be the big ones.
I'm surprised there's one big one you haven't said.
Wait, I skipped over it. Yes, of course. I talk about it all the time.
You always say it.
True Stories.
This is why I wrote this.
Yes,
you always say it. If I could revisit one, True Stories. And it's because you learn more about the behind the scenes, but also just as time's marched on, it's kind of lingered in a weird way for both of us. It just kind of pops up in discussion and just...
Yeah, it's one that, like, when it finished, I'm like,
the David Burns film True Stories, yes.
Yeah, it's just a weird one where I, like, didn't get it while I was watching it. And then by the time I got it, the film was over. So I felt like I didn't watch it right.
Yeah. And it ticks a lot of the boxes you love. Like ensembles, John Goodman's there. Like it has a lot of Bubble Boy people. Swoozie Kurtz is there being a crazy lady talking about hot dogs. And she's like a little robot servant that gives her hot dogs.
Yeah, and I've seen the Red Letter Media review episode on it where they're like, just love it. And it's like, man, that's... I need to watch it again. I think I will actually really like it the second time through.
We've talked about improvements and growth and discoveries and journeys and all of this. And I was talking to you a few weeks ago about like learning about who we are as like podcasters and reviewers and like what fascinates us and what divides us. And like who are we as reviewers? And like I like talking about films and I've always been very critical and I get in heated discussions, but until doing a podcast, I never had to like analyze my own analysis, if you catch what I mean. Like, what am I about when it comes to the things I like? It would just be like, I'm in a discussion and I'll tell you why this film works for me and why it doesn't, but I never like had to second guess it and like help redefine my own definitions of it. And over the years, I think what I've come to really learn about myself as like someone who reviews things and discusses things on this podcast and my second podcast with my wife is there are two main pillars that matter to me. Characters. I would rather a character-driven film than a plot-driven film. It always comes back to that for me. I have a hard time if I don't know the people that are taking up the time in the film. I've often said that, like, who are the people in this movie? If I don't know who they are and I don't connect with them, or I don't find something to, like, bring out in a discussion or to think about, then I really struggle. That isn't like a golden rule. There are some films that are characterless that I enjoy, but for the most part, like, character stuff really matters to me, and I can be the make or break. And the other thing that I've really picked up is I really am concerned about, or I really take umbrage with films that have, like, contradictory messaging or bad messaging, or, like, you know, I have, like, a concern about, like, the moral stance of a film.
You've been exploring that a bit recently, just in our discussions off mic.
And you and I have, like, stumped each other with that on the occasion, where I'll talk about a thing and you're like, I didn't even think about that and it didn't matter to you, or, like, when I bring it up, you're like, it didn't even factor in, but now you're saying it, like, well, it's hard to say that that's not there, and that's not even, like, in a bad way. There are films where I praise it's like the moral stance of it and its convictions and how it's following through on that. But I take real umbrage with ones that contradict themselves, or they have a really awful kind of message at its core, but it's being presented in this very, like, shiny way to itself. Like, there are films that we've done over the years that I just go, that's reprehensible on just this moral level. And it's not like, say, when we cover something like Nightingale, that's a film that's dealing with reprehensible characters and reprehensible moral values of society, but that's what the film's about. It's about that's bad. I have problems with films that don't understand that and just reinforce it because it's like, teehee, this is just how it is. And it really upsets me when I do it on my podcast with my wife, where we're talking about Star Trek, which has, you know, a large history of dealing with moral issues as like a forefront thing. And on this podcast, where we deal with movies that, whether they have it at the forefront or not, and it comes up, but also as a praiseworthy thing too. There are films that are like, you mentioned The Handmaiden before. It's like The Handmaiden has a lot of interesting, like, social commentary and things to make about, like, the Korean and Japanese relationships and all of that, but it's on a background thing. Or like the Pat Labor movies, is like, that has a lot of things it's saying about war and politics and peace and all of this stuff. And, like, do I agree with it on a moral level? I don't know, but the film's asking questions and it's actually delving into it. See, and here I am. I'm going off on the discussions that these are the things that fuel me, these character stuff and these kind of more ideological moral things. I've realized over the course of this decade, these are the things that I often circle back around to.
Yeah. Who are we as reviewers? It was a funny one when I first read it, because, you know, we did start this podcast with as being a type of reviewer, I guess. You know, we were doing these audio commentaries on films in full, with the whole goal of, like, you know, propping up the positive, like, these are the greatest films ever made, and
films that people wouldn't usually give this much credence to.
Yeah, and also with the mystery box, there's with these two shows, there was like a kind of reactionary element to them. I wouldn't have really thought of ourselves as reviewers there, even though, yeah, technically we're doing the thing. So I guess I walked into, you know, this latter two shows, the Televisual Event and Pictures Powwow, still not really thinking of myself as a reviewer. And even these days, not really thinking that, even though when I tell people about the podcast, I'm like, oh yeah, we review movies. You know, this is what we do on the podcast. We review the movies, yet I don't really put the label of myself as a reviewer. Yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, in terms of how I have been thinking about things over the years, it did kind of stem from the mystery box I mentioned before, when you said that thing about, you know, you're allowed to not like these films, right? I really do have a sort of drive to look to the positive, and I have been trying to challenge myself to, like, okay, let's actually get into some of the negatives. So sometimes when we do a film and, like, we have the same opinion, I'm like, oh, great, we have the same opinion. This is going to be easy. But also, like, can I actually look past all of these positives that I want to talk about. And I think I have gotten a little bit better at it over the years, not just, kowtowing to like, oh, it's just the positive elements. Let's actually try to look into this more thoroughly.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with looking at the positives, but it's also deepening one's appreciation of a film and like, what are positives? Is it more than just, I enjoyed it because it's a thing I watched and entertainment? Because for a lot of people, that is what movies are for. It's like, I watched it and I enjoyed it and I liked it. One of the most haunting statements, this speaks a lot to me.
Mm.
And I've said this to the person who said it and to you with them in the room, and I got like this pushback on it, but this is me. One of the most haunting statements we've ever been given in this podcast is from a guest of ours who said, I don't like watching movies that don't make me happy. And I just find that it disturbs me to my very core. I love watching movies that challenge me, that upset me, that make me happy, that make me sad. I love going through the whole array. That's what art is for. But I do think a lot of people look at art and films and movies as entertainment purely. As just like, did I like it? I liked it. And that's where it ends. And so I'm not saying that's necessarily what your thing is about, but that does feed into like, it's easy to just talk about it in the, I liked it. But even then, challenging what is the like? What is that? How can you define that? What are the things that adds up that picture in your mind?
Yeah, weirdly enough, I found it a bit easier to be critical when we guest on other people's podcasts. Like I sometimes feel a bit guilty thinking of the 2 times that I've been on the Chats, a television podcast.
And we've been very, very negative.
And there've been 2 things that I didn't like. Like, you kind of liked Palace a bit more than me, but I was like, oh God, this just didn't work for me. And Drive, like, there was some passion there from the 2 of them that I'm like, oh, guys, this was...
We thought it was very bad.
No, I can't defend this one. And even on the Contrarians, like, that one actually is a bit more like we're positive and they're
We're
negative.
defending it.
Yeah.
You love Oscar.
Yeah,
and they didn't like Oscar.
I guess
and hearing in your voice them being like, Sylvester Stallone's career, and you're like, but what about the movie?
Yeah, I guess being critical of something and also, of having the contrary opinion and being able to, properly argue my case. Those have been challenges for me.
Yeah. This is stuff that I'm glad that we're doing this 10-year check-in and, anniversary special because, these are things that maybe bubble away in our minds, but we don't say them aloud to each other or get this level of discussion about it. And, we've been at this and we've had consistent listeners over the years. We've had people message us. We've had new people. We've had people come and go. And I'm sure that there are people out there who check out our earlier stuff and check out our stuff now and see that things have changed or haven't changed in ways. And it's just great to be able to, like, celebrate the time we had, but also just be able to do this. Because I think both of us and even some of our friends just assumed, for the 10-year, what movie are you doing?
I thought...
what movie are you going to cover?
For many years...
Are we going to do Big Fat Liar again?
For many years, I just had this given, like, oh man, we're going to, like, do a special kind of episode like what we normally do, but like a little bit different.
Yeah, we'll do another Paul Giamatti film.
Yeah, and maybe we'll do an Unappreciated Masterpieces for old time's sake or something like that. So yeah, I when I walked into and we were talking about this, I think literally yesterday or on Friday or something, where I was like getting nervous as we got closer to. I walked into this recording being like, man, I don't want to fuck this up.
For the last couple of months, I kept bringing it up, and you were just like stonewalling me. I was like, does he not care that much? I'm pretty excited. But then as we got closer, you were opening up about it and getting more kind of like nervous, as you said, but also excited. It's that thing. But I was just like a bit perplexed. I was like, is he not? It's like 10 years, right? That's like a big deal. And you're just like, yep, because you can be very affable like that. You can just be very much like, yeah, pretty crazy, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, and like 3 minutes ago, like I was thinking about that note, like, oh, that's all gone. Like I'm just in the flow now.
That's how it goes.
Yeah, it's been really good.
What have we learned over these years? We've said so much already about learning and our perspectives changing, and we have changed. It's been a decade. It's been 10 years, 2015, now it's 2025. The world has changed. There's so many moments where I can remember historical events that took place in these 10 years in relation to the podcast.
Oh, yeah,
Whether we talk about them on the pod or not. We rarely did talk about them on the pod, but, like, I remember, like, during the Paris attacks, we were doing
Yeah, Kangaroo Jack.
Kangaroo Jack, and we were just talking about
The
that
third episode.
After that, or personal life stuff. Like, I've not just moved in with my girlfriend, I got married, we've been at a different place. We talk about the podcast almost not just in these different phases of shows we've done, but in two phases. The old place and this place that I live in. Like, I've lived in two different places during these 10 years.
Yeah.
And it did feel like a vibe shift. Like, now we have a different podcast setup. Now we have multiple mics. Now we have one like proper table instead of what I used to have, which was an old poker table that would fold out and it would have wires underneath. And I would have to explain to every guest, now don't touch these wires underneath and blah, 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 blah. And it had cup holders on it. And it's like, make sure not to spill your drink and blah, blah, blah. We'd have all of this rigmarole. Now that's changed and things have become more streamlined, but at the same time, there are things here that just remain. These are the things that just like, hey, we're going to be talking and chatting about like a random Paul Giamatti movie and going on and do our Paul Giamatti impression, or you'll come in with a Polish fact.
Yeah, well, typically it's you asking me for a Polish fact when I don't have one and I have to scramble for something.
Sometimes you come in with one.
Yeah, I think in the City Slickers episode, I made a joke about how, like, every time you do that, I'll just go back to the good old, the main actor's Polish heritage.
Of course.
Or something like that, and I've never done it.
So, 10 years, Bartek, what have you learned? What has changed, and what do you look back on with all of this?
I've learned that it's the friends we made along the way.
Never ever eat.
Never ever eat. It's just the same lessons over and over again. I was right from the very beginning. All that good stuff. No, what have I learned? I've definitely grown. We've definitely gone through a bunch of different phases, so there's got to be something, but
I mean, so much in your life has changed. You've got a career.
Yeah, the thing you were mentioning about like the different phases of life, like there are little things here and there that I remember, like, I was doing this placement for my teaching degree when we were doing like Monkey Bone, and then Intolerable Cruelty, that's when I was doing the big placement.
Mm-hmm.
I even mentioned before that I remembered that we did that Lloyd Files recording around the time of St. Trinian's because we had some real-life drama with one of your housemates at that time where they referenced the two recordings being done really close together.
See, I forgot that detail, so there you go. See what lingers?
Yeah. I always remember that, the A-team to Krippendorf's Tribe was when we shifted from first place to the next. That From Paris with Love was the first time that we didn't just use that original microphone, which I use when we do like recorded separate sessions.
Yeah, still works.
Yeah, it's a good microphone.
Yeah, it was. It still does what it needs. I think the podcast, at the start started out as like a fun thing. And then there was a little bit more ambition to try and expand our horizons, do new type of formats, get more analytical. But the thing that has been the heart of it is being able to have a nice way to have an activity each week, something that we've maintained and done for 10 years. Like, I was thinking about, like, there were moments in both of our lives that were so hectic and so crazy that, if we ended the podcast or put it on hiatus because of those events, whether they be, you have had some health stuff over the years.
Yep.
I've had family members pass away and things like that, that we managed to still, even despite all of that, do the podcast and, but still know our limits of like, hey, let's take a break here. Let's do this here, still be respectful of ourselves and each other, but still have this as a nice activity to do. And like, after we record, we're not joking, we will sit around for hours sometimes just shooting the shit on talking about whatever, thing that we have going on, or thinking about things in the past, what we want to do, and stuff of that variety. I remember at our old place sitting in one of my former housemates' empty bedrooms because they'd moved out, and we would just sit in the front room and we'd just be chatting about like, have you ever experienced this thing, or just have you ever done this? And it's like half an hour ago we were just talking about the Munez era.
Yeah, how things change. Yeah, and it's been we've had some hard times, but it has been kind of therapeutic. Like I always bring up the example of when we did the Boss Baby. I had some like very heartbreaking news about like plans that I had that were not going to happen, and watching that film and doing that episode just kind of cheered me right up.
Yeah.
The Elvis impressions just made everything better.
Yeah, and we've mentioned it already, but we've had so many guests and we've had so many podcasting friends, and we've had a wonderful community of people that we know and we talk to. We've been to their places, they've been to ours, or things like that. And of course, the people out there, the listening people. We've had so many messages over the years, so many perspectives given to us, and like little comments or suggestions that really shape our opinion or make us rethink things. Like the IMDb reviews, that was like a kind of humorous way of getting a different take. But the listening people out there, whether they give us direct film suggestions or just leave a comment, that has been like the honest, true version of getting a different perspective outside of our own podcast. And I thank everyone who's managed to do that over the years, and keep
Same
us.
Here, yeah.
It's also nice to know that people are listening, people hear what we're saying, and maybe they disagree, maybe they agree. Maybe they have some funny observation that, like, I say Bartek's name in a particular way. I don't know what that means. Or like random reviews we've had of our podcast, like Bartek, the one whose name is spelt like how it sounds, or whatever that comment was, because you said that in an episode and they verbatim said it, and you're like, what did they mean by that? I'm like, I think you said that.
They were trying to remember what my name was or something like that.
But that is pretty much all of it. We've been chatting away for quite a while now. Anything else you want to say here?
Yeah, just thank you everyone as well. Yeah, and keep them coming. If you guys have things to say, like we said that we get a lot of messages over the years, but there are a lot of quiet points. You can fill that very easily just by giving us whatever thoughts you have. We don't mind. We love it.
Oh yes, and
it keeps us going. I can't imagine these past 10 years without the podcast.
I know. It's really changed our lives for the better. We've seen some people, podcasts come and go as well, but we still think about them. I'm like, oh man, I wish that podcast would come back. But but no, we've still been plugging away at it, and don't know how much longer we'll plug away, but no plan of stopping anytime soon.
Yeah,
so,
I want to keep going if we can.
But that is all. Thank you so much, listening people, for being here, for supporting us, for hearing us go down memory lane and have a little bit of a reflection upon our lives over the last 10 years. 2015, we've had one Polish president rule for a good period of time, and then now a new one's come in.
Yeah, because they had 10 years. So.
Yeah. For the most part, they were there. Your good friend.
Yeah, Duda.
We've had like 8 prime ministers here in Australia during that time, probably. One of them twice, probably. I don't know, but
definitely had like 4 or 5.
Yeah, it's been a crazy time. I joked to Bartek
when we started. Was Abbott still?
Oh boy, don't make me.
Is he 13 to 16?
I don't remember, but I joked to Bartek for the months leading up to this that, and I won't do this, but I just said we could really tell how much the decade has changed by doing a compilation of every time we've talked about Harry Potter on here.
Yeah, I referenced that a bit earlier.
Just because the reaction and the way Harry Potter is treated is different, but also like how we talk about it is kind of funny, because I think I'm pretty much like the same talking points, and you were like shifted so much over it, which was something I forgot. I forgot you even said to me, like, oh yeah, I was a Harry Potter fan. And I was like, when I was referenced to you, like a discussion about it a few weeks ago, I'm like, oh, I kind of forgot that Bartek was like he would label himself a Harry Potter fan.
My whole thing, I think I said it in the Prisoner Azkaban episode or something. It's like at a point when I started watching anime and stuff, I really fell off it. And that was like a year or 2 after the final book came out. But yeah, from like middle of primary school to like year 9, like I was a fairly big fan. And then just, year 9 onwards, I just completely fell off.
Wow. But now
So a lot of the discussions was based on things that I remember. Like I remember that first one in The Wedding Date with Rachel in it. Yeah, it was just me basing it off of stuff that I remembered.
Yeah, that's That's how it goes.
And
But...
a lot of the, metatextual things that came after, like the Pottermore and all that was all like in the news. I'm like, oh, that's weird. I was kind of with you and all that.
But thank you all so much again, listening people. Remember to be kind to each other, or else.
Or else. And if you want to stick around for however much longer is in the timeline, we'll go over one little fun memory lane thing.
Yes, Bartek had this prepared.
Yes, in that I woke up really early today and I thought, I'll just get this done quickly, and I sat down for like 4 hours writing this all up. So this is based on a very old running joke from this podcast. It was all basically in the...
We call it lore.
Yeah,
we call
the lore.
Spin Polish lore.
Yeah, so in Unappreciated Masterpieces and slightly in the mystery box, we would have our friend Mark Russell as a recurring guest on the podcast.
My former housemate.
Yes, and we hang out with him very often. We saw him yesterday when we were watching Ghost in the Shell. And we would have a running joke on the podcast that, like, every time he showed up, he would get killed off in some way and replaced by a clone, and we would try to have, like, continuity of... who the clone is and their new identity.
Sometimes it's
like
revealed that halfway through we're actually talking to the replacement all along. The other one had died off screen.
And we would reference this every now and then because, it was a fun little running thing that we did, but we would get some details like mixed up, like, oh, what was it here? What was it there? And I said yesterday, just offhanded, like, oh, you know what? I'll go over all the episodes and like...
I literally gritted my teeth when he said that because I'm like, it's going to be really complicated probably.
Yeah. And when I said that took me hours to do, I was like, Jesus Christ. But it was very rewarding because, I would go on YouTube. I would try to work through the transcripts, like type in Control F keywords, and I would have to listen to them for significant portions so I can get the context. And see how it even all started. Because yesterday I said what the inciting incident was, and I'm completely wrong.
Yeah, I felt you were wrong, but I didn't know because you said it with such gusto.
Yeah,
I don't think that's true.
I thought I said a cringy thing, and then he just left the room, and we're like, oh, he's gone, new one. And no, it had nothing to do with me, actually. It was you that did something. So let's go over the Mark timeline and all of his...
Yeah, this is the Mark arc.
Yeah, the Mark arc retrospective summary.
This is better than the Freezer arc.
Yes. So, the Mark timeline, and I've got in the sections of each of the renditions. So,
Yay.
The original Mark. Left because Ryan called him an idiot for not remembering a diner scene in Just Visiting, replaced by Mark II, though Ryan later states in Gulliver's Travels that he, quote, died in an unfortunate Just Visiting accident. Far later in Jennifer's Body, it's stated the original is still out there, ... Next chapter, Mark II.
Yay!
And
we say Mark II often. Like, that's the one of
it's
these
a really
names.
catchy one.
It's just a fun thing.
Yeah, well, it was the first one he came up with. And they get the sections get much longer now. That was a very brief one because there's a lot of content.
We didn't know there would be lore.
We didn't know that every time it came up, there would just be so much to do. So Mark II, this is mostly related to Gulliver's Travels episode. Stormed out partway through his first viewing of Gulliver's Travels, threatening to jump off a roof to his death.
Which he did do.
Yes, but... No, this is before we did the episode.
Yes.
But was impressed by Ryan saying, war, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Because he found it, quote, deep. Prompting him to come down and denounce his original family in favor of a new one, becoming, quote, Mark Slewinski Peeny Apps, and begged to do the podcast episode. He finished the first viewing stone-faced by crying since he was so moved. Anyway, after doing his review in the episode, Mark went back onto the roof. Ryan told him not to jump, but Mark Slewinski Peeny Apps jumped, which Bartek gave a 2 out of 10 to because it was a shit landing. It was unclear why he jumped, though in G-Force, Ryan stated that it was because, quote, the film was not appreciated. Bartek did a Billy Connolly impression before the jump, but that went unacknowledged. Thankfully, Mark III came into the room and he liked the film without any qualms. We later learned that Mark Cubed is his preferred name.
Guys, there's 3 genders. There's male, female, and cubed. Oh, man.
All right, this is another longer.
You know what's great? Hearing this, I'm like, yeah, this sounds right.
Yep, yeah.
You know what? The way you say it, like, I know you're quoting it, but it's like, this sounds like how we would say this. So, yes, you got it.
Yep. So, this is the Mark Cube chapter. This one's mostly about G-Force, and
what a film.
we were a bit shoddy with continuity with this one, but I'll tell it as it is.
I wonder how much time was between.
Although he was introduced as Mark III, Mark Cubed was quickly adopted as the preferred name over Mark III and Mark to the power of 3. However, it is revealed an hour into the G-Force episode that Mark Cubed moved away from the home he shared with Ryan because Ryan was going to watch G-Force without him while Mark Cubed was at work. Mark Cube threatened that Ryan would not see him again until he was invited on the podcast again, to which Ryan countered by saying he will be on the following day, which was troubling because Mark Cubed already moved 2 states away to Queensland. Anyway, because we all clearly didn't respect continuity, we all seemed to immediately ignore the events of that last sentence. And Ryan recounted that as Mark Cubed stormed away from their home, he angrily declared that he would, quote, would watch G-Force on the plane. While on the flight, he called Ryan, which concerned Ryan because that interferes with the electrical equipment.
You can't do that. It'll kill you. I watched the Fat Pizza episode.
And it concerned Bartek because it costs money, to call on when you're on a flight. Mark Cubed brushed this off because he, quote, lives on the edge.
I love having Mark on.
Well, that was you saying that.
Oh, good.
Mark Cube thanked Ryan for making him watch G-Force, but the audio was all static and breaking up, though Ryan could make out someone in the background saying, please somebody turn off their phone, someone's phone is on, oh no, we're losing altitude, everyone buckle in, no, which Ryan thought was audio from G-Force that was turned up really loud. The day of the episode recording, Ryan turned on the news to discover that the plane crashed and everyone survived, except Mark Cubed. He died not because of the trauma of the crash, but because the phone got lodged into his ear during the crash, and the phone's static shocked him. Ryan then reveals that the guest on this episode had been Mark Squared all along.
Yay!
But once he was told that squared is to the second power, he realized that he was confused because he recently was contacted by Mark II's spirit, who he dismissed as a square for being a square.
Thank you.
The present Mark is actually Mark to the power of 4, who wanted to keep his identity a secret for a while because he was a member of the G-Force, apparently. After a funny exchange where Bartek says a pathetic thing that made Ryan laugh, Ryan admits that his answering of the phone call makes him the true murderer of Mark Cubed, but only on the condition that the police aren't listening.
Yes. Which they weren't.
Yes, thankfully.
And statute of limitations has hit, so you can't get me.
This is the longest section. This is the Mark to the power of 4 arc.
Oh boy.
This is the Freezer arc. Mark to the power of 4 next appeared in the Mr. Bones episode, though we just called him Mark in that one. At the end of the episode, the character Devlin from the film, Devlin from Mr. Bones. Wanted to kill us while in his helicopter, so he recruited the help of another character from the film, an unstoppable elephant, and fought against him in a turn-based RPG battle. Ryan used golf, but missed, though thankfully he did minor effect damage. On Mark IV's turn, he chose to jump and ended up hanging on the propeller blades. Bartek used his dice skill and rolled a 2, only doing a measly 20 damage. The elephant chose to run, but in a shocking twist, it ran into the helicopter and defeated it, also killing Mark IV in the process. Ryan, Bartek, and the elephant earned 100 experience points, and afterwards Bartek paused, went to the items, chose a phoenix down, and used it on Mark IV, reviving him.
Wow.
So Mark IV, he actually didn't die.
Yeah, he's fine.
Yep. Mark IV was upset that he missed out on the 100 EXP despite contributing, but too bad for him.
That sounds about right. Yeah, fuck you. You missed out. That's how it works. I'm sorry. Life's not fair, but it is a game.
He turned back up for Space Fury, where a bunch of stuff happened that I won't get into, but Mark IV kills Zack Snyder and sets a space station on fire which crashes into Los Angeles, so Venice Beach burns. That's all I had for Space Mutiny. It was too complicated to summarize.
Wow.
But it was very funny. Everyone check that out. Finally, Mark IV appeared in the John Tucker Must Die episode.
Oh no, I have worries. He's been the longest lasting Mark.
Yeah. Where at some point in the film, someone is wearing a shirt that has some sort of S word on it. At first, it seems like a Slytherin shirt. Then Ryan states that it probably says sabotage, to which Bartek bravely retorts that S stands for sex, which gets a simple yes out of Mark, which Bartek holds over Ryan, teasing that if Ryan didn't agree, then he'll be outnumbered. Ryan then comes up with a scheme to kill Mark IV to trigger the fifth variation, who he believes will agree with him about the shirt.
Yeah, that's great. Before he said, I'm like, because the next one will agree with me. Yeah. I'm still there. I'm still in the moment. I would kill him again.
Ryan's plot involves a knife that he had on him all along, but instead of stabbing Mark IV, Ryan takes off a watch that he is wearing and puts it onto Mark IV's wrist, which apparently makes him, quote, whipped and owned by Ryan. I don't know, maybe that's a John Tucker Must Die reference?
Yeah, probably. Or just reality.
Yeah. Mark IV rejects his enslavement and is about to be punished by a little stab, so he tries to run away. He ends up stabbed, annoying Ryan because he's now bleeding on Ryan's floor and Ryan wants his watch back. Ryan insists that Mark IV ran into the knife while Bartek accuses him of purposely stabbing him. Ryan tells Bartek to turn on the machine that will create the next Mark, who will decide whether it was murder or an accidental running into the knife. Bartek turns on the machine, gives the command activate Mark, and enters the password, which is sex grass weed.
Okay.
And then Pentamark is born. Pentamark doesn't have the memories of the previous Marks, but insists that Ryan would never murder anyone because Ryan is an innocent flower. The machine then gave Pentamark memories that are specifically about the plot of John Tucker Must Die, so that episode could continue.
Thank you.
Next chapter is Pentamark. Pentamark, this one's not as long. Pentamark, in the Jennifer's Body episode, everyone ruminates on the original Mark possibly still being out there. In the film, there is an emo kid that I think is named Colin that is really into demons and gets killed by Jennifer. Mm-hmm. Ryan notes the similarity of interest between Colin and Mark, saying that Colin is basically Mark, to which Pentamark says he remembers Colin's experiences. Ryan then reveals the big twist that Colin was the original Mark, whose death is depicted in the film, and that all the Marks we've had on the podcast have actually been one incarnation higher than what we had assumed. Meaning that Pentamark is not actually Pentamark. All along, he has been Marky Balboa. Unfortunately, though...
Keep going. Marky Balboa. I forgot about Marky Balboa. We should call him that next time.
Unfortunately, though, by his next appearance, everyone completely forgot about the name Marky Balboa. So after spending a minute reminding themselves of the lore, they went with Hexamark.
Can we go back to Marky Balboa?
I was distraught when I listened to this, yeah. So unfortunately, the last chapter is Hexamark. The last appearance of the Mark line was in the episode on The Man, where
the infamous episode, The Man.
Yes, where Hexamark and Bartek were debating Ryan about a lot of semantics of colloquialisms and words having double meanings. At some point, Hexamark had also brought up that he walked into the film thinking that there was some sort of gay angle to the relationship, fueled by the poster having a clear power dynamic between Samuel L. Jackson and Eugene Levy, as well as the fact that he had recently been shown Ben and Arthur, so it was fresh in his mind, which Ryan and Bartek both found funny. When the topic eventually turned over to the title of The Man, and how the meaning was actually about the authority figure rather than a gendered individual, Bartek brought up how the phrase The Man can also refer to the more traditionally masculine person in a same-sex relationship, inadvertently being brought over to Hexamark's interpretation of the film's gayness. Yeah, we get a lot more analytical in this chapter.
Yeah.
After
This is Hexamark, after all. He has, like, 6-dimensional brain.
Yeah. After Hexamark clarified a bit more, Ryan was so done that he declared Hexamark had a heart attack during his explanation and is now 7 of Mark.
Yay!
Hexamark's last words were Rosebud, to which a nearby Orson Welles declared, I made that movie. 7 of Mark speaks in a really high-pitched voice, so be sure to remember that for continuity's sake. And a final message. We never got to Mark 8, but Hexamark said that the 8th Mark will be like the multiplicity clone that throws pizzas at doors.
I know that reference, yes.
Yes.
Oh, 7 of Mark. I hope you're doing okay, buddy.
He talks like this.
He's been talking like that for a while.
It's very funny hearing Mark talk like that.
Bartek.
Yes.
Thank you for being the keeper of the Mark lore.
Yes. If anyone wants it, just come to me and I'll give it to you.
There's going to be a wiki now.
Yes.
Called Mark, the Mark arcs. Where it's just, and you put the years of the Mark arcs.
There was some reference there about like, man, it's been a year since we had you on, and yeah.
Yeah, we do like, instead of like BC AD, we do like, you know, BM before Mark, and then, you know, we do all of that.
Yeah, which one's the key one that's like the year 0?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Bartek, for your diligence, for being the keeper of the lore, and for confirming that the S stands for sex.
Mm-hmm. Shit, I said what the password to the machine is. Now everyone knows.
No, don't clone more Marks. The world can't handle it.